Chapter 753. This sudden turn of events caused Xiao Yan, who was on the opposite side, to be involuntarily stunned. He did not expect that the two people in front of him, who were about to attack him, would suddenly turn into such a state. Of course, the person who was the most sullen at this moment was likely Lin Zheong. Even until his death, he did not understand why Bai Zhan, who was beside him, would attack him. The trash in his eyes, who he thought was a fool, had killed him at the most critical moment while he was unprepared. Who would continue to think that he was a fool after using such tactics? After all, anyone with a discerning eye would be able to hear that Lin Zheong did not have any good intentions when he said those words. Bai Zhan appeared to have fallen into his trap. However, only at the last moment did Lin Zheong truly understand that Bai Zhan was not a fool. Instead, he was too naive. From the beginning until the end, Bai Zhan had treated the other party like a fool. The other party had also treated him in the same manner. It was just that Bai Zhan was unable to see through it. Bang! Following a muffled sound, Lin Zheong's corpse fell to the ground like a pile of mud. Fresh blood continued to splatter. After twitching a couple of times, it stopped moving. Bai Zhan narrowed his eyes when he saw this. A sharp glint shot out from his eyes. The corner of his mouth was lifted into a cold smile. At the same time, he raised his hand and aimed his palm at Lin Zheong's corpse. Soon after, a wild suction force surged out from Bai Zhan's palm. Lin Zheong's body was immediately lifted into the air by this suction force. Bai Zhan's hands suddenly withdrew. Following a miserable cry, Lin Zheong's corpse once again smashed heavily onto the ground. At the same time, an illusionary body appeared in Bai Zhan's hand. From the looks of it, it was Lin Zheong. In the Yuanwu continent, as long as one's strength reached the Do-D class, one's spiritual essence would not scatter even if one did not have a physical body. Hence, the current Lin Zheong's spiritual essence within his body was completely undamaged. You are not a bandit. Only at this moment did Lin Zheong, whose body had already turned illusionary, truly realize that the strength of the Bai Zhan in front of him was not that of a 9-star bandit. The other party's strength was even stronger than Lin Zheong at his peak. You are correct. However, it is too late. Bai Zhan coldly laughed as he mocked. Why, are you helping him? Don't you also want me to die? As long as I die, and with your interference, my father will definitely blame all of this on Xiao Yan. When my Bai clan and Xiao Yan fight to the death, your Lin clan will be able to replace my Bai clan's position. Bai Zhan sneered. He had already roughly grasped the latter's thoughts. However, it was a pity that such thoughts were just wishful thinking in his opinion. Hearing Bai Zhan's words, Lin Zheong couldn't help but reveal a deep fear in his eyes. He didn't expect the young Bai Zhan to have such a meticulous mind. What the Bai clan could think of, he had thought of it without a single mistake. Boom! Immediately after, without waiting for Lin Zheong to struggle, Bai Zhan's hand, which was pinching Lin Zheong's neck, suddenly exerted force and crushed Lin Zheong's neck. This time, Lin Zheong's life could be considered to have come to an end. After doing all this, Bai Zhan finally raised his head and looked at Xiao Yan on the opposite side. He smiled and said, Mr. Xiao Yan is truly a capable person. A month ago, you were still a middle-stage 6-star half-martial emperor. In the blink of an eye, you've already reached late-stage 6-star half-martial emperor. This sort of frightening cultivation speed is truly stupefying. I merely borrowed the miraculous effect of the jade bone fruit. It can't be considered much. Xiao Yan lightly smiled. He was not exaggerating. Hearing that, a radiance flashed through Bai Zhan's eyes. He thought to himself, sure enough, Lin Zheong is dead. I believe that the Lin clan will soon discover that Lin Zheong is dead. At that time, they will inevitably send people over. Mr. Xiao Yan, do you still plan to continue to stay here? Bai Zhan looked to Xiao Yan with a smile that was not a smile. Hearing those words, the latter frowned slightly. Soon after, the corners of his mouth curled up. He smiled and said, "Brother Bai's scheming is much better than this fellow's. Once I leave, the crime of killing Lin Zheong will be placed on my head. That way, the Hua clan will turn their attention to you and your Bai clan will have less pressure." Bai Zhan frowned slightly. He did have such a plan. On one hand, he wanted to find an excuse for himself. On the other hand, he hoped that he would be able to use this opportunity to gather the Hua clan's attention on Xiao Yan. To his Bai clan, this would be extremely beneficial. However, looking at Xiao Yan's current appearance, it seemed that, forget it. Seeing that you helped me get rid of him, I can help you take the blame. However, I want something from you. Xiao Yan narrowed his eyes and said with a smile. Seeing the smile that was lifted from the corner of Xiao Yan's mouth, Bai Zhan's heart involuntarily tightened. Why did this smile give him a strange feeling? However, in the end, Bai Zhan violently clenched his teeth and asked in a solemn voice. "May I know what Mr. Xiao Yan wants?" "That 5-star Do D-class monster core." Bai Zhan's words had just sounded when Xiao Yan immediately spoke. At the same time, the latter's expression instantly changed. The muscles on the corner of his mouth twitched wildly. This action of Xiao Yan really had the feeling of snatching food from a tiger's mouth. That monster core was something that both father and son valued greatly. Although they knew in their hearts that the result of refining it would be greatly reduced, they were unwilling to give it up. At this moment, Xiao Yan had actually unceremoniously opened his mouth to ask for this thing. Even with Bai Zhan's character, he could not help but have the impulse to curse at this moment. Bai Zhan was quiet for a long while before he finally calmed himself down. A thought flew in his heart, but he was unable to think of a complete reason to reply to Xiao Yan. "That, the monster core is in my father's hands. Perhaps I can accompany you here and wait for the arrival of the Lin clan. I think that the Hua clan will also send someone here not long later." Before Bai Zhan could finish speaking, Xiao Yan interrupted him. Xiao Yan smiled as he looked at Bai Zhan. His indifferent manner caused Bai Zhan's heart to itch with anger. He wished that he could charge forward and bite Xiao Yan a couple of times. However, in the end, Bai Zhan could only helplessly compromise. After all, that monster core might be a treasure, but compared to it, the future of the clan was more important. Hence, after Bai Zhan quietly weighed the pros and cons in his heart, he finally threw a jade box that contained the monster core to Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan did not inspect it. Instead, he threw it into his storage ring. The other party currently had a weakness that he could use against him. Naturally, Bai Zhan would not dare to give him a fake one. Otherwise, Bai Zhan should have expected that kind of result. "Thanks. We will meet again." Xiao Yan grinned and revealed a smile that was as bright as the sun. However, this smile caused Bai Zhan to bitterly laugh when he saw it. Xiao Yan turned around and called out to Ah Bao, who was carefully observing from afar. When Ah Bao heard Xiao Yan's words, he immediately ran over and obediently followed behind Xiao Yan. The two of them swiftly flew towards the southern horizon. Bai Zhan looked at the direction where the two of them had gradually disappeared from where he stood. His face finally revealed a helpless expression. He looked at Lin Zheong, who had already died beside him, and cursed softly. Immediately, he waved his sleeves and a cluster of turbulent flames immediately flew out, turning Lin Zheong's corpse and head into ashes in an instant. Chapter 754. After leaving the territory of the Bai clan, Xiao Yan conveniently brought Ah Bao with him. Although this 9-star half-martial emperor was currently very weak, as long as he was given sufficient time or the opportunity, it would be extremely easy for him to step into the Do D class. Next, Xiao Yan's target was to head to the south of the Shilin region, the Shilin mountain range. Currently, the medicinal ingredients needed to refine the medicinal pill had been gathered. It was time for Xiao Yan to refine the Bodhisattva returning pill. Once he successfully refined the Bodhisattva returning pill and obtained the icy spirit cold liquid, there would be hope for the ice spirit pill. Once the ice spirit pill was refined, it would be time for Xiao Yan to swallow the heavenly flame. Now, the day of swallowing the heavenly flame was approaching. However, Xiao Yan also felt a sense of loss in his heart at the same time. Unlike an ordinary person who borrowed the strength of a heavenly flame, once he swallowed Gu Yu's actual body, Gu Yu's consciousness would disappear. At that time, Gu Yu, who had accompanied Xiao Yan, would completely disappear from this world. This thought caused Xiao Yan's heart to feel an endless loneliness. Of course, Xiao Yan also understood in his heart that this was Gu Yu's mission. Gu Yu's existence was to wait for Xiao Yan's arrival. According to Gu Yu's words, he was already tired of living like this. Haha, little fellow, there is no need to mind. It is inevitable that you will swallow the bone-chilling flame. The old me has been trapped in this world for too long. If you can successfully swallow the bone-chilling flame, it will be a kind of release for me. Gu Yu sensed the change in Xiao Yan's mental state along the way. He immediately made a guess in his heart. Xiao Yan quietly nodded in his heart after hearing Gu Yu's words. The disappointed expression on his face was also withdrawn. He led a bow behind him and swiftly flew in the direction of the Shilin mountain range. In the blink of an eye, 1 month had passed. Currently, there was still more than a year left before the 2-year agreement between Xiao Yan and Leng Bingshuang. However, Xiao Yan had already found the medicinal ingredients to refine the Bodhisattva pill and returned here once again. Xiao Yan stood high in the sky. His gaze looked at the vast mountain range in front of him, which he could not see the end of. His heart finally sighed in relief. Arriving at this place gave him the feeling that he had found his family. Compared to the complicated emotions of a human, everything in this place appeared much more straightforward. The so-called good and evil were easily displayed in this place. At the very least, Xiao Yan did not need to scheme against the magical beasts in this mountain range. At this moment, even Bao, who was standing behind Xiao Yan, also swept his gaze over the mountain range in front of him. A shock immediately surged into his eyes. Compared to the mountain range he was in, this place was simply boundless. Comparing the two, it actually felt like a small child in the presence of a great one. Perhaps, this Shilin mountain range would be tens or hundreds of times the size of his mountain range. Is this the Shilin mountain range? It is really huge. Bao's face was stunned as he opened his mouth. Originally, he wanted to say something impressive. However, in the end, he realized that he did not know how to describe the mountain range in front of him. Alright, let's go. We have yet to reach our destination. Xiao Yan smiled. His body moved and took the lead to fly into the depths of the mountain range. Bao followed closely behind. Sir, Bao has a question that I have always wanted to ask you. May I know? Just ask. Bao involuntarily frowned during the journey and asked Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan faintly replied. He listened to Bao's words as he swiftly rushed forward. That is, sir, may I ask if you are really a human? Bao's Adam's apple moved slightly as he spoke, indicating the nervousness in his heart. Ever since Xiao Yan had recovered from his injuries, Bao had always faintly sensed a faint pressure from Xiao Yan's body. This kind of pressure came from the bloodline pressure between magical beasts. Only magical beasts could sense each other. When he had first met Xiao Yan back then, Bao had not sensed it due to Xiao Yan's weak aura. However, after Xiao Yan had recovered from his injuries, that strange pressure had been emitted from Xiao Yan's body. The closer he was, the clearer he could sense it. It was because of this that he had such a question. No. Hearing Bao's words, Xiao Yan secretly smiled. He naturally knew the reason, but there was no need to reveal it to Bao. Bao felt somewhat helpless in the face of Xiao Yan's vague answer. He scratched his head and followed closely behind Xiao Yan. However, he carefully maintained a distance. Not long after, Xiao Yan brought a Bao to the depths of the Shilin mountain range. The Sky Eagle trio were nowhere to be seen, but Xiao Yan knew where they were. Xiao Yan smiled. A thought passed through his mind and the soul bead between his brows trembled slightly. Soon after, a majestic spiritual strength swiftly spread towards the mountain range below. After a few breaths of time, 3 figures sitting cross-legged in the depths of the earth suddenly opened their eyes. They raised their heads, and a fierce look appeared in their eyes. Who dares to spy here? There is no need to be nervous. It is me. Just as the expressions of the 3 changed, a somewhat illusory human figure slowly condensed in the empty space in front of them. These 3 were the 3 beast kings of the Shilin mountain range, Sky Eagle, Flame Lion and Xionggang. Xiao Yan. It's Xiao Yan. Brother Xiao Yan, you're back. The 3 of them cried out in surprise at the same time. The stern expression on their faces instantly turned into ecstasy. It seemed that there was nothing happier than seeing the person in front of them. 3 brothers, it's best if you come out and meet me. All right. The 3 of them exchanged glances with each other when they heard Xiao Yan's words. They immediately nodded their heads in agreement. First, they sealed the underground space where the 3 of them were located. After which, their bodies moved and they left this place. A few minutes later, in the sky outside, 5 figures stood impressively. When the Sky Eagle trio saw Xiao Yan again, it was as if they were brothers reuniting. The 3 of them stepped forward and gave Xiao Yan a big bear hug. Only then did the 3 of them notice A Bao, who was behind Xiao Yan. This is, Sky Eagle frowned. The bloodline connection let him know at first glance that this guy was the same as them. They were all magical beasts. Moreover, he was also a 9-star half-emperor. Xiao Yan casually recounted what had happened in the Bai family's territory. Although it was an understatement, it still caused the expressions of the 3 in front of him to change. However, seeing that Xiao Yan had returned unharmed, they were able to relax. Right, brother Xiao Yan, you came back this time for, after coming back to his senses, Bai Ying first looked at A Bao, who was behind Xiao Yan, then turned his gaze to Xiao Yan and asked in a puzzled voice. Of course I'm back to fulfill the agreement. Chapter 755. Shilin Mountain Range, within Tianying's cave. Xiao Yan and Tianying were seated within the large hall. As for Yan Shi and Xionggang, they thought that A Bao was looking for a cave and had sent him away. Brother Xiao Yan, what you said earlier means, you have already finished refining the Bodhisattva returning pill? Tianying's face carried a trace of surprise. Ever since Xiao Yan had revealed his spiritual strength earlier, he had already sensed that the current Xiao Yan was no longer the same as before. He was no longer a rank 2 alchemist. In less than a year, the person in front of him had actually become a rank 3 alchemist that even an elite Do Di would treat with respect. The Bodhisattva returning pill was a rank 3 medicinal pill. Tianying's heart immediately thought of the Bodhisattva returning pill when he heard that Xiao Yan had returned to deliver the promise. No, I have only just found the medicinal ingredients needed to refine the medicinal pill. I have yet to begin refining it. Xiao Yan smiled bitterly and shook his head when he heard Tianying's words. Although he had already become a rank 3 alchemist in the eyes of others, who would know that this rank 3 alchemist in name had yet to personally refine a true rank 3 medicinal pill. Tianying nodded his head when he saw this and said, "It's fine. Since the medicinal ingredients have already been found, refining the medicinal pill is merely a matter of time. You have also had a tough journey. You should rest at my place for a couple of days. I can see that your aura is a little weak. You have only broken through to the advanced 6-star half-martial emperor level not long ago, right?" Tianying first nodded his head. Soon after, he discovered another abnormality on Xiao Yan's body. He was surprised in his heart. He did not expect that Xiao Yan had actually broken through to the advanced 6-star half-martial emperor level so quickly. This kind of training speed was something that the three brothers could only hope to catch up with. Haha, it is merely borrowing external strength. It is nothing much. Xiao Yan smiled awkwardly when he heard this. He did not deny it. You're really a monster. Tian Ying's brows twitched. He involuntarily shook his head and smiled bitterly. Immediately, he randomly gave Xiao Yan some instructions before turning around and leaving this place. He left the remaining strength and space to Xiao Yan. All of a sudden, Xiao Yan was the only one left in the huge cave abode. Xiao Yan pondered for a moment. There was still a year before the agreement with Leng Bingshuang. During this period of time, it was completely enough for him to refine the Bodhi returning pill. His body lazily leaned against the back of the chair. Soon after, Xiao Yan's spirit was roused. He seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly stood up from the chair. Both of his hands were swiftly lifted from under his sleeves, revealing two fair palms. With a flick of his hand, a circle of pitch-black ancient scrolls appeared in Xiao Yan's left hand, while a palm-sized jade bottle appeared in his right hand. The pitch-black scroll was naturally the incomplete sage-grade cultivation method that had been auctioned off at the auction. As for the jade bottle, it naturally contained Xiao Xian's remnant soul. After Xiao Yan took out these two items, the empty space beside him became slightly distorted. Soon after, Guyu's body appeared. His eyes were firmly fixed on the black scroll in Xiao Yan's left hand from the very beginning. Xiao Yan raised his eyebrows slightly when he saw Guyu appear by the side. He had originally intended to ask Guyu for advice. Unexpectedly, Guyu had appeared on his own. "Old Gu, do you know what's different about this cultivation method?" Xiao Yan softly inquired as he opened the scroll in his left hand. Immediately, a fragment of an ancient qi method was exposed in the air. At this moment, the jade bottle in Xiao Yan's right hand trembled slightly. There seemed to be a mysterious connection between the two that could not be seen with the naked eye. I can't be wrong. This must be the origin skill. Guyu's eyes stared intently at the small fragment of the qi method in front of him. Both of his eyes involuntarily revealed a deep surprise. This is unexpected. I really did not expect that this thing, which had disappeared from the continent for so many years, would actually appear here. Moreover, it has appeared together with him. This is really fate. Guyu smacked his lips. A gloating smile appeared on his old face. Just how many people had once gone crazy over the origin skill? Because of this thing, a countless number of people had died. However, from the looks of it now, no one recognized it even though it was placed in front of them. This allowed Xiao Yan to take advantage of it. Origin skill, huh? A sage-grade qi method. I wonder just how powerful it is. Xiao Yan revealed a curious expression when he heard Guyu's words. He looked at the qi method fragment in his left hand. A qi method that could cause Guyu to exclaim was definitely extraordinary. Haha, this origin skill is not only powerful. It is not an exaggeration to call it heaven-defying. Guyu smiled. He did not hide the praise in his words. Xiao Yan lifted his eyebrows. He could not help but feel surprised in his heart. Just how heaven-defying was this origin skill? To think that Guyu would repeatedly praise it. Origin skill. Based on what I know, anyone who practices this qi method will definitely be able to reach the origin venerate level. Guyu mused for a moment. After which, he spoke to Xiao Yan in a solemn tone. Origin venerate. A shocked expression immediately appeared on Xiao Yan's face when Guyu's words sounded. Origin venerate was a true top expert in the Yuanwu continent. An expert who stood at the top of the pyramid. Just what kind of qi method was this? It actually guaranteed that the practitioner would definitely be able to reach the origin venerate level. It was likely that even some cultivation geniuses, who boasted of their frightening talent, would not dare to make such a claim. But why would it cause ancestor Xiao Xian to react in such an unusual manner? Soon after, Xiao Yan recovered. The reason why he had taken out these two things was merely to find out why Xiao Xian's soul fragment had reacted in such an unusual manner. He was not concerned about just how frightening this chi method was. This is because your ancestor practices the origin skill. The chi method that he practices is of the same origin as this remnant scroll. This is why a mysterious connection is formed between them. What? Xiao Yan's expression changed drastically after Gu Yu's words sounded. From Gu Yu's words, it seemed that the chi method that Xiao Xian practiced was this origin skill. Don't be so anxious. If he had really practiced the complete version of the origin skill, how could his strength be stuck at the 9th star of the Daoist class? The reason why he was unable to break through to the Ban D class was because his chi method was incomplete. Incomplete? The excited expression on Xiao Yan's face was slowly withdrawn. The excitement in his heart also gradually returned to calmness. However, the doubt in his heart grew. Could it be that the origin skill that ancestor Xiao Xian practiced was merely an incomplete scroll? There is no need to think too much about it. The origin skill that your ancestor practiced is indeed complete. However, the one that he practiced only allowed his strength to reach the 9-star Daoist class. Chapter 756. One's strength can only reach the 9th star of the Daoist class. Why is that so? Xiao Yan's expression involuntarily changed after hearing Gu Yu's words. He was surprised in his heart. Had Gu Yu not said that this origin skill would allow one's strength to reach the great origin venerate level? Why had it become a 9th star Daoist in the blink of an eye? Brat, why are you so anxious? I have yet to finish speaking. Gu Yu softly teased. After which, his old face became serious as he continued. I have just said that the origin skill can allow one's strength to reach the great origin venerate level. This is indeed the truth. However, I have also said that the origin skill that your ancestor practiced would at the very most allow his strength to reach the 9th star of the Daoist class. Huh? Xiao Yan was startled. Could it be that the origin skill was divided into different levels? This thought had just appeared in Xiao Yan's heart when Gu Yu by the side quickly opened his mouth. Based on what I know, the origin skill is divided into 3 volumes, that is really the case. Xiao Yan was startled. The muscles on the corner of his mouth twitched involuntarily. It was unexpected that there was such a ridiculous chi method. The first volume of the origin skill can raise one's strength to the Daoist class. There will be no bottleneck before one reaches the 9th star of the Daoist class. What? Xiao Yan's heart was greatly startled after these words were uttered. A chi method that could eliminate bottlenecks. Just this point alone made this origin skill worthy of being called frightening. As everyone knew, the so-called path of cultivation was bitter and arduous. Cultivation was not easy. Who knew how many people with great ambitions had their strength stagnated because of some bottlenecks on the path of cultivation? Originally, they had great cultivation aptitude, but because they were unable to break through their own cultivation bottlenecks, their cultivation ended. In the end, the cultivation geniuses could only fade into the crowd. There would never be a lack of people on this continent who had turned from a genius to a good-for-nothing. For example, Xiao Yan back then, or Bai Zhan, who had once competed with him. Of course, the latter was naturally pretending. But even so, he still couldn't escape the eyes of ordinary people. The bottleneck of cultivation could be said to be a fence that blocked the path of countless experts. If one could break through it, their future would be smooth. If not, they would be imprisoned on the other side of the fence forever, and could only be reduced to the background of others for the rest of their lives. But now, the returnance technique could actually allow cultivators to avoid all kinds of bottlenecks on the path of cultivation. Didn't this mean that as long as one cultivated the returnance technique, no matter how poor one's cultivation talent was, they could use it to become a powerhouse overnight? Who didn't wish to transform into a dragon? Who didn't wish to become a peerless expert whose name would shake the world and be revered by the world? It was also because of this that so many experts on the mainland had gone crazy over the returnance technique. Don't be happy too early. This is indeed the reason why people have gone crazy over the returnance technique. However, how can it be so easy to become a powerhouse? Even the returnance technique cannot allow one to reach a bottleneck. Guyu poured a bucket of cold water over Xiao Yan's head while he was feeling shocked by the returnance technique. He immediately pulled Xiao Yan out of his imagination. I have already said that the returnance technique is divided into 3 volumes. Each volume has its own advantages. However, if one wishes to use the returnance technique to raise one's cultivation to the origin venerate, one needs to use the 3 volumes to complement each other. The first volume can help a cultivator reach the 9th star of the Daoist realm, just like your ancestor. However, the 9th star of the Daoist realm is the limit of the first volume. One needs to cultivate the second volume if they want to break through this barrier. Similarly, the second volume can only raise a cultivator's strength to the returnance realm. If they want to break through, they need to cultivate the third volume. The connection between each volume is the 2 realms of Half-Emperor, Origin King, and the Origin Saint realm after the Origin Venerate. After cultivating the returnance technique, the amount of time and difficulty required to break through these 3 realms will be several times that of an ordinary person. However, even if this is the case, it cannot hide the fact that the returnance technique is powerful. This old man once heard that 1,000 years ago, someone had coincidentally obtained the complete set of this secret art. In a short 100 years, that person had actually leapt to become a peerless expert whose name shook the entire continent. That person's strength was something that few people could compare to even in that era. From this, one can imagine just how frightening this returnance art is. Even with Guyu's mental fortitude, he could not help but reveal a shocked expression when he reached the end of his speech. It was easy to imagine that someone had become a peerless expert who could shock the continent in just 100 years. How could this not cause one's expression to change? 100 years might seem like a very long time, but it was merely the blink of an eye in the eyes of a cultivator. Just think of the sect leaders of the 4 great sects of the Western region. Every single one of them had cultivated for hundreds of years to reach their current accomplishments. On the other hand, it seemed like they had been sleeping their entire lives when compared to that person. Hiss hiss, Xiao Yan's throat rolled slightly. Since Guyu had already revealed such an appearance, he was naturally not in a much better state. It was a long while later before Xiao Yan gradually withdrew his mind. His eyes once again returned to the scroll in his hand. Immediately, Xiao Yan felt that this remnant scroll had become much heavier. If it was really as Gu had said, this remnant scroll in his hand was related to the problem of Xiao Xian's strength after he was revived. Xiao Yan did not dare to be the slightest bit careless when facing Xiao Xian no matter what. Old Gu, can you tell which part of the returnance technique this remnant scroll belongs to? Xiao Yan lifted his eyes, turned to Guyu by the side, and asked curiously. Although there were quite a number of words on this scroll fragment, Xiao Yan was unable to understand any of these ancient and strange things. How would he be able to identify which scroll it was? This. I don't understand either. I can only see if you have the opportunity to find the other remnant scrolls. I can't tell anything from this small piece. If it were not for the abnormality of this jade bottle in the auction house, I would not have thought that this was the returnance technique. Guyu helplessly shrugged his shoulders when he heard Xiao Yan's words. Seeing this, Xiao Yan could not help but feel vexed. Helpless, he could only temporarily keep it safe. As for the remaining remnant scroll that Guyu had mentioned, Xiao Yan would naturally try his luck. After all, it was related to his ancestor, Xiao Xian. After recovering, Xiao Yan's gaze once again looked at the jade bottle in his right hand. A smile surfaced on his face. Ancestor, please wait a little longer. As long as I gather enough spiritual origin, I will help you repair your soul as soon as possible. After which, Xiao Yan flipped his hand. At the same time, he stood up and walked out of the cave. However, the moment Xiao Yan kept the jade bottle in his storage ring, an extremely weak light lit up within the jade bottle. Even Xiao Yan did not notice it. /6_M. Chapter 757. 3 days later, a black-robed figure stood at the peak of the Shilin mountain range. Xiao Yan stood with his hands behind his back as he faced the blowing cold wind. He allowed the cold wind to blow at his black robes as his pitch-black eyes looked towards the southern horizon. At the end of his sight was a vast white world. One could faintly see the silhouette of some tall mountains. Behind the tall mountains was the hinterland of Shilin. Xiao Yan could not help but frown slightly as he felt the incoming cold wind. Has the cold wind already invaded this place? Xiao Yan was naturally referring to the cold wind in the hinterland of Shilin. Even though the eastern wall had been sealed, the cold current had crossed over the tall mountains and spread towards the Shilin mountain range. Quite a large area of the forest had already been covered by ice and snow. That's right. The cold wind there is growing stronger and stronger. Moreover, that lord's injuries have yet to recover. After so many years, no one knows what will happen to this place if this drags on. Tian Ying's figure slowly appeared in the empty space to the side. His eyes were similarly looking towards the southern horizon. His eyes could not help but reveal a worried expression. They were born and grew up here. They were destined to stay and protect the Shilin mountain range. However, they ultimately did not wish to see this mountain range destroyed. Regardless of whether it was invaded by humans or drowned by the cold wind, the blow to the Shilin mountain range would be devastating. Is there no way to deal with this cold wind? Xiao Yan's brows were almost tightly knitted together. The cold current had spread from underground. Blindly sealing it was ultimately not a long-term solution. Once the cold current once again charged out of the ground, the Shilin mountain range would definitely become a living hell. It was simply impossible for an ordinary half-martial emperor to survive the cold current. Besides Leng Bingshuang, the strongest people in the Shilin mountain range were Tian Ying and the other two. Even the three of them were not confident in dealing with the cold current, let alone the others. Before Her Excellency was injured, she had been using her strength to forcefully suppress the cold currents, which prevented them from spreading throughout the entire mountain range. However, after Her Excellency was injured, her ability to suppress the cold currents became weaker and weaker. A few years ago, Her Excellency could no longer suppress the cold currents and could only allow them to spread. Fortunately, there was the mountain wall to block them. However, after what happened last time, the mountain wall clearly could not block them for much longer. It was also because of this that Her Excellency was in such an urgent need for the Bodhi returning pill. Tianning shook his head with a heavy expression. His words allowed Xiao Yan to understand why Leng Bingshuang was so concerned about the Bodhi returning pill. As the master of the Shilin mountain range, she needed to protect everything here. Xiao Yan took a deep breath and nodded slightly. Then, he turned his head and said to Sky Eagle, "Old brother Sky Eagle, I will have to trouble you to help me clear the nearby mountain range." Sky Eagle's expression was involuntarily stunned when he heard this. He asked in confusion, "Old brother Xiao Yan, I think that it is time to refine the Bodhi returning pill." Xiao Yan pursed his mouth and smiled. He did not say anything else as he sat cross-legged on the mountain top. He waved his large hand and a light flashed. Soon after, a green-gold enormous medicinal cauldron landed in front of Xiao Yan like a small mountain. It was only at this moment that Tianning by the side finally recovered. Joy immediately surged onto his face as he nodded heavily. His body flashed and disappeared from the sky above the mountain top. Not long later, all the magical beasts within the territory of Tianning and the other two brothers deep within the Shilin mountain range appeared to have received an order as they swiftly withdrew from the periphery of the Shilin mountain range. Within a short moment, only Xiao Yan, the three Tianning brothers, and Ah Bao remained in this mountain range. On a mountain peak, the three Sky Eagles and Ah Bao stood there. The four of them raised their eyes and stared at the mountain peak where Xiao Yan was. The expressions in each of their eyes were different. Xiao Yan sat cross-legged on the mountain peak. His eyes slowly closed and his breathing gradually became even. He tossed all the thoughts in his mind to the back of his mind as his heart gradually calmed down. A moment later, Xiao Yan's body stopped moving. He allowed the medicinal cauldron in front of him to land heavily on the mountain peak. The area within 1,000 feet of Xiao Yan's body seemed to have formed a special area. It was as though there was an invisible wall. Each time the cold wind invaded this area, it would automatically scatter to the sides. Xiao Yan's body did not move even a little. His entire person was like an old monk who had entered a meditative state. All the distracting thoughts in his heart were abandoned by Xiao Yan. His mind was completely blank. His entire person had entered an ethereal state. He could not hear any sound in the world, nor could he sense any movement. In this manner, Xiao Yan sat cross-legged for a total of 4 hours. It was not until 4 hours later at a certain moment that Xiao Yan, who was on the mountain peak, finally slowly exhaled. His dark, deep eyes slowly opened. They were calm, much like a deep pool of water that one could not see through and could not see through. The thoughts in Xiao Yan's mind rotated. The medicinal properties of the various medicinal ingredients and the medicinal formula of the Bodhisattva returning pill clearly appeared in Xiao Yan's mind as though he was flipping through a book. Every step and detail was repeatedly formed in Xiao Yan's mind. A completed Bodhisattva returning pill seemed to have appeared in Xiao Yan's mind. He sat there for another 2 hours. The setting sun was like a remnant of blood. In the distance, one could see a red sun that looked like a huge fireball. The scarlet clouds emitted a blazing light under the scarlet sun. It looked like a large flame burning in the sky. It looked like it was boiling, but also like it was about to be extinguished. PFFF, the mountain peak in the distance was like a giant beast that ate the sky. It swallowed a small part of the red sun. The setting sun was like blood, and it was even more gorgeous. At the same time, on the mountain peak, Xiao Yan had been sitting in front of the medicinal cauldron for a day. Billowing flames burned fiercely with a puff. The gorgeous flames emitted a radiance as bright as the sun. The terrifying high temperature was isolated by the medicinal cauldron, and the entire mountain range became bright in an instant. Even the red sun in the sky couldn't compare to this radiance. The moment the flames rose, on the other side, on the mountain peak in the distance, the 4 people sitting with their eyes closed suddenly opened their eyes. Their eyes brightened, and their hearts relaxed. This guy, he's finally going to start refining pills. The flame lion parted his mouth and smiled. Half of the large stone suspended in his heart had finally fallen. He had waited for an entire day for this scene. It was unexpected that Xiao Yan would only unleash his flame at this moment. /54_M. Chapter 758. The moon rose above the treetops. Unknowingly, night had already descended. Xiao Yan sat in front of the huge green-gold cauldron at the top of the cliff. Hundreds of precious medicinal ingredients floated in the air around him, forming a ring that surrounded Xiao Yan. A fierce flame burned within the medicinal cauldron. Xiao Yan controlled a couple of medicinal ingredients at a steady pace and threw them into the medicinal cauldron. Under the refinement of the heavenly flame, those originally green and bright medicinal ingredients gradually changed color. Of course, this kind of change was extremely minute. An ordinary person would have difficulty sensing it. Only an alchemist could clearly see it in his mind by relying on his enormous spiritual perception. The process of refining medicinal ingredients was long and boring. It tested the alchemist's patience. At the same time, it also tested the alchemist's understanding of medicinal ingredients. The degree of refinement of each medicinal ingredient determined the final result of the refinement. This was directly related to the final result of the refinement of the pill. The quality of the finished product not only needed to consider the fusion of the medicinal ingredients at the later stage, but also the refinement at the earlier stage. It played a crucial role. The purity of the medicinal herbs was related to the quality of the medicinal pill itself, and the degree of purification was related to the number of finished medicinal pills. The more medicinal herbs were refined, the more pills would be refined. Otherwise, there would be nothing left. In the blink of an eye, half a month had already passed. It was said that there was no time in cultivation. However, refining medicine was not much different. In the end, it required a large amount of time to complete. As the saying goes, where there are gains, there are losses. From a certain point of view, refining medicine was a combination of gains and losses. This was even more so for cultivation. The roaring flames burned without any change within the green-gold cauldron. Xiao Yan's eyes were tightly shut. Half a month did not cause Xiao Yan to feel the slightest bit of fatigue. On the contrary, he felt that his temperament had become even more stable under the repeated refinement. Tianning and the other two would occasionally watch from afar with awe bow. Under the might of the three people, not a single magical beast dared to take half a step into this place. The high-ranked magical beasts that originally resided in the depths of the Shilin mountain range had also helplessly retreated to the outskirts of the Shilin mountain range. This matter caused the various magical beasts in the Shilin mountain range to change their expressions. The humans outside the mountain range were also extremely puzzled by this. Damn it! What exactly happened in the Shilin mountain range? Why have all these high-ranked magical beasts come here? 8-star half-emperor level magical beasts. Such powerful fellows should normally be cultivating in the depths of the mountain range. Why have they appeared here? In the outskirts of the Shilin mountain range. They even more. Of them even more, and, in the Shilin mountain range. In the blink of an eye, another half a month had passed. Time swiftly flowed by without Xiao Yan realizing it. The medicinal ingredients in the medicinal cauldron in front of Xiao Yan had basically been refined into various states. They were either powders, viscous liquids, or some different colored liquids and plasters. There were over 100 types in total. On the peak of the mountain, Xiao Yan's seated figure did not move at all. He was like a statue. In the cauldron in front of him, several hundred types of medicinal ingredients that had already been refined were slowly fusing together under the control of the heavenly fire. When medicinal properties clashed, there would be medicinal ingredients that would neutralize them. When medicinal properties were compatible, there would be medicinal ingredients with violent medicinal properties that would fuse together. The process of fusing medicinal ingredients was slow and long. This step alone took Xiao Yan an entire week's time. Within the hot medicinal cauldron that was filled with a heavenly flame, clusters of thumb-sized medicinal ingredient essences were wrapped by the heavenly flame as they rotated. Following the pouring in of Xiao Yan's spiritual strength, these medicinal ingredients began to approach at an extremely slow speed. An unyielding energy ripple erupted from within the medicinal cauldron the moment they made contact, scattering some of the surrounding flames. The two clusters of medicinal liquid were just like two wild and violent magical beasts. Neither of them was willing to show weakness. Allowing them to fuse together was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. With regards to this, even with Xiao Yan's spiritual strength, he could not help but feel a little troubled in his heart. It was indeed worthy of being a medicinal ingredient used to refine a Tier 3 medicinal pill. This kind of powerful energy fluctuation was not something that those Tier 2 medicinal pills could compare with. Fortunately, even though this process caused Xiao Yan to spend quite a lot of effort, the two clusters of medicinal liquid still slowly fused together under Xiao Yan's powerful spiritual strength. However, this was merely the beginning. After this, there were still quite a number of medicinal liquid that had yet to be fused. By the time Xiao Yan had completely fused these medicinal ingredients, another half a month had already passed. However, just as everything gradually appeared to be on the right track, the medicinal ingredients within the medicinal cauldron that were about to formally enter the pill merging process suddenly emitted a puff sound and turned into a pile of ashes in an extremely abrupt manner. The sudden appearance of this scene caused everything that Xiao Yan had done earlier to instantly turn into bubbles. His entire person was absent-minded for a moment. Fortunately, not long after, Xiao Yan recovered from it. Failing to refine a medicinal pill was simply a common occurrence for alchemists. It was just a failure. At the very most, they could just start all over again. The only thing that could be feared was that after failing once, they would not have the courage to face it again. This was truly pitiful. The first failure did not leave any complicated feelings in Xiao Yan's heart. Instead, it caused Xiao Yan to be even faster in his second refining process. Everything became smooth like flowing water. Even when it came to the crucial steps of refining a Tier 3 medicinal pill, Xiao Yan did not hesitate at all. Just like this, after more than 2 months, the second batch of medicinal ingredients in Xiao Yan's medicinal cauldron officially entered the pill-fusing process. This process was to separate and fuse the various medicinal ingredients that had been previously refined. After this process, it would be the final step of fusing the pills. As long as this step was passed, it would be the process of condensing the pills and nurturing the pills. This step was the most crucial and important moment in the entire refining process. It could be said that the success or failure of this step was directly related to the medicinal pill itself. If it succeeded, there was hope for the medicinal pill and how valuable it would be. If it failed, it would turn into a pile of black ashes and become worthless. At this moment, some cold sweat finally flowed down Xiao Yan's forehead. /54_M. Chapter 759. In the blink of an eye, 5 months had passed since Xiao Yan had begun refining the Bodhisattva return pill. During these 5 months, he had failed to refine the Bodhisattva return pill once. After taking out the second set of medicinal ingredients, Xiao Yan was only left with 1 set of medicinal ingredients out of the 3 sets that he needed to refine the Bodhisattva return pill. In other words, Xiao Yan only had 1 chance of failing when refining the Bodhisattva return pill. With the first failure, Xiao Yan was even more cautious this time around. The various small errors that had occurred during the previous refinement were all eliminated by Xiao Yan this time around. Although some small unforeseen events had occurred during this period of time, it was fortunate that they did not have any impact on the actual pill fusion process. On the top of the cliff, Xiao Yan's statue-like body trembled slightly. His eyes, which had been tightly shut for many months, finally opened once again. His mouth exhaled a long breath. The huge rock that had been suspended high in Xiao Yan's heart had finally been lifted a little. The long and difficult pill fusion process was finally completed after bitterly persevering for over a month. Fortunately, Xiao Yan did not encounter any accidents this time around. Perhaps it was because his spiritual strength was stronger than an ordinary rank 3 alchemist. However, Xiao Yan was more inclined towards luck. He believed that it was because of his good luck that he was able to safely pass through this stage. In Xiao Yan's words, it was merely a fluke. Although the pill fusion process had been announced to be over, Xiao Yan's face had already turned pale. Even though he had already become a rank 3 alchemist, refining a rank 3 medicinal pill was not so easy. The amount of spiritual strength that was needed to be exhausted in this process was similarly enormous. Based on Xiao Yan's current spiritual strength, his spiritual strength would be completely exhausted after he finished refining the Bodhi returning pill. Of course, if he did not experience the previous failure, his condition would naturally be much better. Unfortunately, there were no ifs in this world. After the pill fusion was completed, he could temporarily breathe a sigh of relief. However, it would not be long before he would once again have to concentrate on the next pill formation process. Beautiful flames rose within the enormous green-gold medicinal cauldron. A cluster of fist-sized viscous liquid was leisurely rotating within the flames. From time to time, a surge of energy would be emitted from it, causing the surrounding flames to be pushed back a little. Immediately after, the flames would once again pounce ferociously like hungry wolves. The same scene within the medicinal cauldron repeated over and over again. The battle between the flames and the viscous liquid did not seem to end. Xiao Yan, who was seated on the mountain peak, did not move his body. The flame mantra chi method followed, and strands of natural energy from the surroundings seemed to be attracted to gather toward Xiao Yan. While refining medicine, the consumption of dou qi was similarly not small. In order to refine those special medicinal ingredients as soon as possible, Xiao Yan had no choice but to expend even more dou qi to increase the strength of the heavenly flame. After using it for a long period of time, his body would naturally not be able to endure it. To be able to rely on the strength of a 6-star half-emperor to endure until now was already extremely good. Xiao Yan had not been sitting for 3 days. In the outside world, the original 3 great beast kings of the Shilin mountain range had now been joined by a new Bao. This more or less caused Tianning and the other 2 to feel conflicted emotionally. However, since this person was brought here by Xiao Yan, they naturally could not say much. Although they were usually amiable when they saw him, they had invisibly distanced themselves from him. Being isolated by these 3, Bao felt rather helpless in his heart. He was definitely unable to return to his original home, but there was no place for him to stay in the Shilin mountain range. This caused him to be at a loss as to where he should go. He could only place his hopes on Xiao Yan. The latter was very powerful. Since he was able to bring him here, he naturally had his own intentions. On the other side, Tianning and the other 2 actually did not know how to treat Bao. In terms of friends, it could be said that they did not know each other, let alone acquaintances. Although Bao had some relationship with Xiao Yan, the 3 of them had known Bao much earlier in comparison. They were even friends who had gone through life and death with each other. This Bao was truly too unfamiliar. "Boss, do you think that this fellow will be up to no good? He has been staying on that mountain since 2 months ago and has been watching Xiao Yan day and night. Who knows if anything good will happen to him?" On a mountain peak, Yan Shi frowned as he stared at Bao, who was standing on a mountain peak closer to Xiao Yan. Both of his eyes involuntarily revealed a worried expression. To them, Bao was ultimately an outsider. No one knew what he was thinking. Once he had ill intentions towards Xiao Yan, it would still be extremely dangerous even with the 3 of them watching. Let's wait and see first. Don't jump to conclusions. It is fine if nothing happens. However, if something happens, we must not allow him to leave alive. Keep a close eye on him in the future. Be careful that he does not do anything that he should not do. Sky Eagle could not help but frown when he heard this. How could he not understand the meaning behind Yan Shi's words? However, this person was after all brought back by Xiao Yan. Since the latter had chosen to believe him, Sky Eagle naturally had no reason to doubt him. Of course, this was only effective under the premise that Xiao Yan was watching. Since Bao was able to obediently follow Xiao Yan back, he should naturally be aware that Xiao Yan's fighting strength was far from what an ordinary person could compare with. What made Sky Eagle suspect was that the reason why Bao was obedient was likely because he was afraid of Xiao Yan's strength. If anything happened to the latter, it would likely be troublesome. Sky Eagle quietly said in his heart. His gaze turned and looked at Xiao Yan, who was currently seated on the mountain peak. He could not help but feel a little worried in his heart. He was not worried about whether the returning Bodhi pill could be successfully refined. Instead, he was worried about whether Xiao Yan would be harmed. This was something that he could not tolerate. It was also something that he would never allow to happen. He turned his head and looked at Xiao Yan's side. He had used 3 days to recover his condition. Even though the effect was not ideal, it was not a problem if he used it to maintain the refinement of the medicinal pill. After passing the stage of fusing the pill, the next step was to condense the pill. The so-called condensing of the pill was to further fuse the irregular medicinal strength, causing the medicinal pill to truly take shape. The medicinal strength within the medicinal pill also had to completely fuse into one. Only then could it truly be called condensing the pill. The final result of condensing the pill would be a perfectly round medicinal pill. The pill fragrance would be released, indicating that the medicinal strength had solidified. It could truly be called a medicinal pill. As for pill nurturing, it was a process where the quality of the medicinal pill underwent a sublimation. This process completely depended on the alchemist's understanding of alchemy. It tested the alchemist's level in various aspects of alchemy. Ultimately, the quality of the medicinal pill also indicated the alchemist's ability. /54_M. Chapter 760. Compared to fusing a pill, the method of condensing a pill appeared to be much simpler. Of course, just because it appeared to be easy did not mean that it was similarly easy to do. The process of condensing a pill tested an alchemist's control over both his spiritual strength and flame. His spiritual strength was used to condense the medicinal strength of the medicinal pill as well as the temperature of the flame. If there was even the slightest difference during this process, it was possible that all the previous efforts would be wasted. With the flow of time, the originally fist-sized mottled viscous liquid within the green-gold medicinal cauldron gradually solidified. Finally, it turned into a longan-sized pill. Waves of surging energy were occasionally emitted from within it. It collided with the inner walls of the medicinal cauldron and emitted waves of a groaning sound. The activity on this side was naturally seen by Tian Ying's group. The hearts of the three of them were also filled with doubt. They were true laymen when it came to alchemy. This little activity was really difficult for them to discern anything. Hence, all of their hearts were both shocked and joyful. Their eyes looked at Xiao Yan, who had been seated on the mountain peak for nearly half a year. A worried expression was revealed between their brows. This fellow has already been seated there for half a year. I wonder if he has successfully refined the medicinal pill. The flame lion frowned as he stared at Xiao Yan, who was seated in front of the medicinal cauldron on the distant mountain peak. His tone was filled with doubt as he spoke. Let's not worry blindly. How can the matters of an alchemist be known by the both of us? He is refining a Tier 3 medicinal pill. Even a Tier 2 medicinal pill requires a couple of months to refine. How can the time needed to refine a Tier 3 medicinal pill be any shorter? Xiong Gang by the side displayed an appearance as though he had already expected this. However, from the way he knitted his brows, his heart was not as relaxed as his words. Regardless of whether the refinement is successful or not, we cannot easily interfere. We can only wait for him to stop. The matters of an alchemist are indeed not something that we can understand. If he happens to be at a crucial moment and is disturbed by us, we cannot bear this responsibility. Tianing frowned and said in a deep voice. The two people by the side nodded their heads with solemn expressions when they heard this. The Bodhi returning pill was a medicinal pill that was refined for Leng Bingshuang. Before ensuring that the medicinal pill was refined, they would not dare to randomly intervene. Once something happened, even if Xiao Yan did not find trouble with them, Leng Bingshuang would definitely not let them off easily. They were clearly aware of how terrifying that woman was. Also, don't forget about that guy. Keep a close eye on him. Xiao Yan has been refining medicine for almost half a year. I think it won't be long before he finishes. We can't let anything happen to him at this time. Understood. Soon after, Tian Ying's gaze once again landed on Ah Bao. Currently, other than quietly waiting for Xiao Yan's medicinal pill to be refined, the only other thing that they were worried about was Ah Bao. As the saying goes, time is like flowing water, flowing and never returning. In the blink of an eye, another half a month had passed. The pill-forming process was finally completed. The originally uneven surface of the longan-sized medicinal pill gradually became smooth and sleek under the heavenly flame. The moment the pill-forming process was completed, a rich pill fragrance was emitted from the medicinal cauldron and gradually spread in all directions from the mountain peak. This is the pill fragrance. That's right, this is definitely the pill fragrance. The appearance of the pill fragrance means that the refinement of the medicinal pill is gradually coming to an end. The Bodhi returning pill is about to be completed. On the mountain peak in the distance, Tian Ying's trio were sensitive enough to smell the faint pill fragrance in the air. Immediately, the three of them were wild with joy in their hearts. Once the Bodhi returning pill was successfully refined, there was hope that the injuries within Leng Bingshuang's body would recover. At that time, the cold flow that spread out from the interior of Shilin would also be interrupted. This was undoubtedly a good thing for the entire Shilin mountain range. Xiao Yan's figure was seated cross-legged on the peak of the mountain. Both of his eyes were tightly shut and his brows were tightly knitted. His pale face and bean-sized beads of perspiration on his forehead all described Xiao Yan's current condition. After nearly half a year of continuous pill refinement, even a rank 3 alchemist should have reached his limit. However, he had finally reached the most important stage of pill formation. Pill formation could be said to be important, but it could also be said to be unimportant. The pill formation stage could be said to be dispensable. Regardless of whether Xiao Yan persevered or not, the Bodhi returning pill was considered to have been completed after the pill formation. Even if it did not undergo pill formation, it could still be used. Of course, even if this was the case, the pill formation process also had its purpose. Pill formation was able to raise the quality of the pill that had already been refined. This step was related to the effect that the pill could unleash. As an alchemist, he naturally had to pursue perfection. Hence, Xiao Yan did not omit that last step. It was also because of this that no matter what, Xiao Yan would control the situation within the medicinal cauldron. Regardless of whether it was in terms of spiritual strength or the temperature of the flame, Xiao Yan would definitely maintain it in an absolutely stable state. This was not only for the icy spirit frozen liquid. At the same time, it was also to prove his ability as a rank 3 alchemist. Xiao Yan also wanted to understand just where his true limit was. Large beads of perspiration had already drenched Xiao Yan's clothes. With the flow of time, Xiao Yan's expression became increasingly pale. The dou qi within his body was still wildly being poured into the medicinal cauldron in front of him. Even though there was not much left, Xiao Yan still squeezed every single cell in his body, forcefully extracting energy from within in order to use it for the pill formation of the Bodhi returning pill. At this very moment, the glow on the dark black soul bead in his mind had also gradually dimmed. The originally ink-like dark black color gradually became grayish. Finally, it actually showed some signs of becoming transparent. Fortunately, the pill formation process had already ended. The pill formation process did not require too much effort. Within a short few days, the pill formation process had already officially ended. What he had to face next, rumble, the instant Xiao Yan was about to complete the pill refinement in the medicinal cauldron, the sky above his head suddenly turned dark. The color of the sky changed. The dense dark clouds were like an enormous strange bird suspended above Xiao Yan's head, covering a large part of the mountain forest below. Pill lightning. The pale-faced Xiao Yan withdrew his gaze from the medicinal cauldron in front of him. He lifted his head and looked at the thunderclouds that were churning intensely in the sky. The corners of his pale lips were lifted into a smile at this moment. In the eyes of others, the pill lightning was as frightening as a demon. However, in his eyes, it was the best medicine. Northern King, it is your turn. Chapter 761. The sky above the vast and boundless mountain forest was covered by a dark black thundercloud that blotted out the sun. It was just like an enormous curtain. The originally bright and beautiful mountain forest below had suddenly become completely dark. The rumbling thunder was just like the roar of a huge beast. Under the thunder, the entire mountain range below seemed to tremble. A terrifying destructive aura spread from the thundercloud. Occasionally, thunderbolts would flicker from within, causing one's heart to tremble. This scene really gave off the feeling of the end of the world. The appearance of this scene caused the expressions of the Tianning trio, who were constantly guarding Xiao Yan, and Bao, who was currently closest to Xiao Yan, to change. Immediately, the four figures moved in unison. They swiftly flew towards Xiao Yan, who was still seated on the mountain peak. The descent of the pill lightning was a destructive force that was second to none in this world. Under this force, unless the medicinal pill was destroyed, everything that blocked the pill lightning would be mercilessly and forcefully destroyed by it. The terror of the pill lightning was publicly acknowledged by everyone on the continent. Damn it! I have been so focused on this brat that I have forgotten about the pill lightning. Its terror is far from something that this brat can compare with. We must be quick. Xiao Yan does not have much strength left. Once the pill lightning falls, he will be finished. Tian Ying's body swiftly rushed to Xiao Yan's side. At the same time, his mouth let out an anxious cry. The expression on his face was extremely grave. Even they did not have much confidence in being able to block a pill lightning of this level. However, Xiao Yan was currently in danger and they could not be bothered with so much. No matter what, nothing must happen to Xiao Yan. As for Ah Bao, the three brothers did not have the mood to care about him at this moment. Currently, everything was focused on Xiao Yan. If anything happened to Xiao Yan, the three brothers would feel guilty for the rest of their lives even if the returning Bodhisattva pill was completed. Of course, they did not know that Ah Bao was also thinking about how to help Xiao Yan at this moment. The moment these four people moved, the black mass of thunder clouds in the distant sky began to churn intensely at this moment. Soon after, an earth-shaking rumbling thunder sounded. A dark black shocking thunderbolt shot out from the thunder clouds and violently smashed toward Xiao Yan below. Damn it! Quick, faster! On the other side, the expressions of the Tian Ying trio changed. However, before they could do anything, the frightening thunderbolt had already descended and headed straight for Xiao Yan's head. The pale-faced Xiao Yan flicked his finger when the four of them saw that the thunderbolt was only a couple of 100 feet from Xiao Yan's head. A dark black light instantly shot out from the storage ring on his finger. It was just like an arrow that instantly penetrated the empty space. Soon after, it heavily collided with the frightening thunderbolt that was heading toward him. Boom! Immediately, an earth-shaking explosion resounded across the 9 heavens. A frightening energy storm instantly swept out from between the two. The four of them, who had yet to step forward, were caught off guard and were violently sent flying by the energy storm. After the four of them stabilized their bodies 1,000 feet away, they focused their eyes and were shocked to see a purple-gold human figure standing proudly in the sky. The human figure was expressionless. His eyes were empty. At this moment, he stood proudly in the sky like an invincible giant god. He had easily disintegrated the frightening thunderbolt that had fallen heavily a moment ago. Looking at the purple-gold human figure, who else could it be other than the Northern King? The thunderbolt spread and left a hole the size of an ordinary person's fist on the Northern King's chest. If such a heavy blow landed on an ordinary person's body, even if that person was lucky enough to not die, he would definitely be seriously injured. Although the Northern King had suffered such a heavy blow at this moment, numerous black thunderbolts were swiftly emitted from within his body. They swiftly flowed over the enormous hole. Within a short couple of breaths, the hole had once again become flat. If one were to carefully observe it, one would discover that the purple-gold color that covered the Northern King's body was becoming denser. This indicated that the Northern King's strength as a one-star Do-D was gradually increasing. Pill lightning was indeed the best medicine for the Northern King to advance his strength. The faces of the four people who had been forced back immediately revealed shocked expressions when they saw this scene in front of them. The four of them had seen the Northern King before and knew that he was a puppet. His strength was stronger than any of the four of them. However, they did not expect the Northern King to be this strong. Just from this point alone, it was likely that even an ordinary elite Do-D would not have the courage and strength to shake the pill lightning. This fellow, he never planned on getting our help from the start. Hey, as expected, not only is he a monster himself, but even the things in his hands are also extremely monstrous. The strength of this puppet has long since surpassed that of a Daoist. TSK, we have trained for hundreds of years, but we are merely 9-star band D. In the end, we are actually not as strong as a puppet. We are truly ashamed. The eyes of the three brothers revealed shock as they stared at the Northern King in the sky. They immediately faced each other. Their eyes involuntarily revealed a sweaty expression. At the same time, Bao, who was on the other mountain peak, was also in a similar state. Ha! Suddenly, the Northern King, who was standing in the sky, raised his head and cried out. His voice was indifferent and did not contain the slightest emotion or fear. It was as though he was provoking the Northern King. He wanted to shatter this pill lightning. Today, the Northern King wanted to fight against the strength of this world. Rumble. The Northern King's cry seemed to have caused the thunderclouds to sense a provocation and threat. The originally churning thunderbolts became even more intense at this moment. Thunderbolts rolled and churned unceasingly. The thunderbolts that would occasionally descend were like numerous horned dragons. Bang! Until a certain moment, as the thunderclouds churned, another shocking bolt of lightning suddenly descended. This thunderbolt was even thicker and stronger. Just by looking at it, one could tell that it was much stronger than the previous one. The frightening aura that spread from it caused one's back to feel a chill. The four people in the distance involuntarily swallowed a mouthful of saliva when they saw this. They were certain that if they were in the Northern King's shoes, it was likely that they would lose all their fighting strength with just this thunderbolt. However, the corner of Xiao Yan's mouth carried an excited smile as he sat cross-legged on the mountain peak at this moment. /54_M Chapter 762. From Xiao Yan's point of view, the strength of the pill lightning did not pose any threat to him. Instead, it was filled with an endless amount of temptation. This point was just like a naked beauty. No matter how she swayed her body in front of you, it might cause one to feel that it was boring. However, if she was dressed in a sexy manner, perhaps a small action would cause one to go crazy. Perhaps, at this moment, this pill lightning was like this in Xiao Yan's eyes. Bang! Soon after, an earth-shaking explosion once again resounded over the clouds. The entire mountain range below shook intensely at this moment. The mountain forest swayed and the huge rocks shook. It was as though an earthquake had occurred. The thunderbolt was broken. The Northern King continued to stand proudly. The purple-gold color on its body was extremely dense. Even the corner of Xiao Yan's mouth was curled higher and higher. On the other hand, the thundercloud in the sky trembled intensely. It appeared to be furious and also frightened. Rumble. 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 Soon after, mighty thunderbolts arrived one after another. They appeared endless. The Northern King became increasingly courageous as it fought. Regardless of how strong the thunderbolts were, they were unable to withstand a single blow from the Northern King's fist. Regardless of how strong the thunderbolts were, the Northern King was not afraid. It could be said that he would deal with whatever came his way. In a few hours, the Northern King had continuously received nearly 100 bolts of lightning. However, in the end, the Northern King still stood proudly in the sky. On the other hand, the huge thundercloud seemed to have shrunk. The thundercloud that originally covered the sky had now shrunk to the point where it could only cover the few mountains below. Seeing such a scene in the sky, the four people outside the battle circle were already dumbfounded. These four people had naturally discovered the change in the Northern King's body. The Northern King's strength seemed to be growing in the face of the thunderbolts. Each time the thunderbolt struck, the Northern King's strength would become even greater. After nearly 100 strikes, the Northern King's strength was likely comparable to an advanced 1-star Daoist. It was difficult to imagine just how much the Northern King's strength would rise once the thundercloud in the sky completely scattered. At the same time, Xiao Yan, who was sitting cross-legged on the mountain peak, had already swallowed a medicinal pill that recovered Dou Qi and was doing his best to refine it. The loss of soul energy made Xiao Yan's head feel heavier and heavier. This was a sign that he was about to faint. But before that, Xiao Yan still had something to resolve. That was the pill in the cauldron in front of him. Bodhi returning pill. Xiao Yan had already set up the pill transforming ring long ago. His goal was to prepare for this final moment. Now that the time had come, there was not much Doqi left in his body. In order to have the ability to retrieve the medicinal pill from the medicinal cauldron in front of him, Xiao Yan had no choice but to endure for a little longer. Buzz buzz buzz. It was also at this moment that the Bodhisattva returning pill that had already been refined within the medicinal cauldron seemed to have come alive. The perfectly round medicinal pill violently trembled within the medicinal cauldron before heavily colliding against the inner wall of the medicinal cauldron. Clang! Immediately, a bell-like sound spread. Soon after, however, Xiao Yan, who was seated cross-legged, waved his large hand. The top cover of the medicinal cauldron in front of him emitted a bang sound as it opened. In the next moment, a round medicinal pill automatically leaped out from within. After being distorted for a moment in midair, it transformed into a human shape. From the looks of it, it was actually no different from Xiao Yan. Ga. Thank you very much. I have been nurtured in your medicinal cauldron for half a month. The strength in my body has become even stronger. Thank you for giving me this body. But now, I should leave. Cuckoo, leave? Do you think that you can leave? Hearing the strange laughter that was emitted from the mouth of this Xiao Yan, in front of him, Xiao Yan, who was the actual body, coldly laughed. Since he was able to refine the latter, how could he easily allow him to leave? Oh. Ga, I really can't think of any method that the current you can use to make me stay. The human figure once again laughed strangely. His tone was filled with cold laughter. It seemed that he did not believe that Xiao Yan, who was currently in such a weak state, would have any method to make him stay. If they were to compare strength, with his current peak condition, it would be as easy as flipping his hand if he wanted to kill Xiao Yan. Cuckoo, Xiao Yan laughed faintly. He did not explain further. Instead, he raised both of his hands. Following the thought in his heart, his 10 fingers moved together. Complicated seals were swiftly formed from his fingertips. At the same time, a strange ring of fire suddenly rose around the human figure's body. This is, the transforming pill ring. How did you? Transforming pill ring, withdraw. Xiao Yan completely ignored the shocked expression that was revealed on the latter's face. His tone was indifferent as he coldly spat out a sentence from his mouth. Soon after, the fire halo that surrounded the human figure was swiftly withdrawn. Damn it! So what if it's the transforming pill ring? I don't believe that I can't break this damn thing today. Knowing that there was no way to retreat, the human figure immediately made up his mind. He decided to use offense as a form of defense. If he could break it, he would naturally be free to move forward. If he could not, he could only accept his fate. Bang bang bang. Unfortunately, no matter how much he struggled, the energy that gushed out from his palm became increasingly thin. Soon after, a mysterious light wrapped around his entire body. In a short moment, the huge human figure once again returned to the size of a pill. Xiao Yan reached out his hand and beckoned. The pill was kept in a jade bottle that he had prepared beforehand. With a flip of his hand, he kept it in his storage ring. Soon after, Xiao Yan lifted his gaze and looked at the sky above his head once again. At this moment, the thunderclouds were about to disperse. Hundreds of thunderbolts bombarded the northern king's body. In the end, the only result was that the latter had become even more powerful. Bang! After another fierce bombardment, the dark black thunderclouds that had covered the entire mountain forest in the sky finally scattered at this moment. When one looked at the sky again, it was already close to dusk. The pill lightning scattered and the northern king once again returned in front of Xiao Yan. At this moment, the latter had already fainted. However, he could not wait to find out about the Northern King's current condition. Therefore, he had forcefully endured. The Northern King arrived in front of Xiao Yan. A smile surfaced on the latter's pale face. He forcefully opened his eyes and swept them over the Northern King in front of him. When he saw the increasingly dense purple-gold color on the Northern King's body, Xiao Yan involuntarily nodded. Just from this point alone, the strength of the current Northern King was likely comparable to an initial 2-star Do-D. This was something that he had not expected. /54_M. Chapter 763. After the pill lightning scattered, Xiao Yan, who had subdued the Bodhi returning pill, collapsed on the top of the cliff and fell into a deep sleep. After refining pills for over half a year, Xiao Yan's body and mind had reached an extremely weak state. Xiao Yan really needed to rest right now. However, he had never imagined that this sleep would last for half a month. During this half a month, Xiao Yan's body lay on the top of the cliff like a corpse. The wind could not move him at all. The Northern King was like a metal tower, guarding Xiao Yan's side. No one was allowed to take half a step closer with him standing there, not even the 3 sky eagles. This point caused the hearts of these 3 brothers to be extremely anxious. Although the medicinal pill had already been refined, their hearts were extremely worried when they saw Xiao Yan's manner. They were afraid that something would happen to Xiao Yan because he was refining the medicinal pill. That would really be a loss for the 3 of them. During this half a month, Tian Ying's group and Bao had confessed to each other about the matter from before. Although Bao admitted that his actions were to help Xiao Yan, the hearts of Tian Ying's group still contained some doubt. Bao was also in a state of tacit agreement. If he wanted to truly join this place, he naturally had to have doubts from the start. Otherwise, it would be laughable if he really treated everyone here as a greenhorn. This was the Shilin mountain range, the place where all the powerful magical beasts gathered in the Shilin region. They did not accept mediocre people here. At the same time, news of the natural phenomenon that had appeared in the Shilin mountain range half a month ago rapidly spread in the outside world. The 4 great clans, the Bai clan. Father, have you heard? It happened half a month ago. Bai Ying and his son were seated in the discussion hall. At this moment, Bai Ying held a cup of tea in his hand. He listened to Bai Zhan's statement while gently sipping the tea in his cup. When he heard Bai Zhan's words, Bai Ying put down the teacup in his hand. He lifted his gaze and looked at Bai Zhan opposite him. He nodded and said, "Of course I've heard of it. How can I not have heard of such a spectacular sight when the thunderclouds covered the entire mountain range? What do you think it is? Is someone undergoing an emperor tribulation or something else?" Bai Zhan frowned slightly and asked in a doubtful tone. "Emperor tribulation. You should know what it means. Moreover, it's not like you haven't seen something like that before. Although it's possible, I don't think it's an emperor tribulation." "Then what is it?" Bai Ying smiled as he stared at Bai Zhan and asked, "What are you talking about? Then what are the other things you were referring to just now? Pill lightning?" Bai Zhan was startled and he could not help but ask. "Yes, it shouldn't be wrong. A Tier 3 pill? Otherwise, ordinary Tier 2 medicinal pills wouldn't be able to summon that level of pill lightning." When he heard Bai Ying's guess, Bai Zhan quickly spoke. Soon after, the father and son looked at each other and the corners of their mouths lifted, revealing a meaningful smile. "It's been half a year since that guy last disappeared. I don't think there's a second person who can create such a scene in the Shilin mountain range," Bai Ying said with a smile. Surprise involuntarily flowed out from his eyes. The latter had actually chosen the Shilin mountain range to refine pills. Was he not afraid of being targeted by the guy inside? However, when he thought about it, it made sense. Given the latter's strength and personality, he might feel safer in the Shilin mountain range compared to refining pills in human territory. Xiao Yan, Bai Zhan's eyes narrowed as he muttered the name. He could not help but think back to half a year ago. As the young master of the Bai clan, he had actually been threatened by Xiao Yan and forced to hand over his precious monster core. Even now, he felt extremely depressed when he thought about it. "Father, should we send someone to take a look? What if those 3 clans? There is no need. Let them go if they want to." Since Xiao Yan dared to choose that place to refine medicine, he would not do so without a certain degree of confidence. If the 3 clans really have the guts to go, then let them go. Let's see how many of them go and how many of them return. Bai Ying laughed coldly before Bai Zhan's words sounded. Currently, those 3 clans had placed Xiao Yan on the blacklist of those who must be killed. Because of him, the 3 clans had each lost a Do D class expert. This was undoubtedly a serious blow to the clans. From the looks of it, it seemed that only his Bai clan was not affected. "Alright, you should go back and train. Make some preparations. I heard that the strength of that brat from the Zhuo clan is about to enter the 3-star Do D class. Humph, he is the future hope of the Zhuo clan." Bai Ying narrowed his eyes. A disdain was revealed deep within his eyes. The expression on Bai Zhan's face paused when he heard this. He immediately laughed softly, stood up, and left the large hall. "Xiao Yan, just what kind of person are you? I am really curious." "Unfortunately, the more curious I am, the more I should stop. Curiosity kills the cat. Only by being careful can one sail a boat for 10,000 years. A faint sigh sounded within the large hall. Immediately, Bai Ying, who was seated on a chair, gradually distorted his body and slowly disappeared. Shilin Mountain Range. Xiao Yan, who had been in a deep slumber for half a month on the mountain peak, finally woke up at this moment. Xiao Yan subconsciously raised his right hand to block the sunlight the moment the bright sunlight shot into his eyes. It was only a couple of breaths later that Xiao Yan gradually adapted to the sunlight that seeped through the gaps between his fingers. Xiao Yan sat up and saw the Northern King standing guard by his side. His eyes swept across the sky, but Tian Ying's group was nowhere to be seen. A thought passed through his heart and a vast and mighty spiritual strength swiftly spread out from deep within his brows. In the blink of an eye, he had discovered the traces of these 4 people. Half a month of deep sleep had allowed Xiao Yan's condition in all aspects to once again recover to its peak. It must be said that no matter how much rest he had, it was not as comfortable as having a good sleep. Xiao Yan smiled slightly. His body once again sat down. He did not intend to disturb the 4 of them. At this moment, Xiao Yan still had something to do. Xiao Yan lifted his hand and rubbed the patterns on the Luo Tian cauldron in front of him. He involuntarily felt some pity in his heart. He had been in a deep slumber for half a month and the medicinal cauldron in front of him had been blown by the wind for half a month. This caused Xiao Yan to feel a little reluctant in his heart. Soon after, the hand that was rubbing the medicinal cauldron gently trembled. With a pop sound, a fierce flame once again rose within the medicinal cauldron. The Bodhi returning pill had been refined. Next, Xiao Yan planned to refine the Emperor Tribulation pill. /54_M. Chapter 764. Xiao Yan used half a year to finally complete the refinement of the returning Bodhisattva pill. However, Xiao Yan did not immediately start refining the icy spirit pill. Instead, he restarted the medicinal cauldron and prepared to refine the Emperor Tribulation pill. Xiao Yan already had 1 Emperor Tribulation pill on him. Naturally, he did not need more. The Emperor Tribulation pill that Xiao Yan was currently refining was prepared for the 4 of them. Tian Ying and the other 2 had already reached the peak of the advanced 9-star half-martial emperor realm. They only lacked an opportunity to truly break through to the Do D realm. This opportunity was the Emperor Tribulation pill. Xiao Yan had already promised the 3 of them that he would refine an Emperor Tribulation pill for each of them. However, due to various reasons, he was unable to refine one in the past. However, such a great opportunity was now placed in front of Xiao Yan. How could he easily miss it? As for Ah Bao, Xiao Yan and him were at most in an employer-employee relationship. If they were closer, they were merely acquaintances. The reason why Xiao Yan helped Ah Bao was because Xiao Yan had taken a fancy to Ah Bao's future potential. Although most of the magical beasts gathered in the Shilin mountain range, there were very few truly powerful magical beasts. Even though Tianning and the other two had already broken through to the Do D class, they were merely 3 elite Do D. Without the addition of Leng Bingshuang, the overall strength of the Shilin mountain range could be said to be extremely weak. It was impossible for them to be compared with the factions in the outside world, let alone stand opposite the 4 great sections. Even if the addition of Ah Bao could not cause the overall strength of the Shilin mountain range to increase, the addition of an elite Do D would at least share some of the pressure for the Shilin mountain range. Of course, from the current point of view, the current Ah Bao only had expectations. He was only a future elite Do D. As for now, whether they could recruit him was the most important thing. As for how to recruit him, the Emperor Tribulation Pill was undoubtedly the best choice. Given Xiao Yan's status as a rank 3 alchemist and the allure of the Emperor Trial Pill, Bao had no reason to reject him. Moreover, as long as Ah Bao could stay in the Shilin mountain range for a period of time, Xiao Yan could guarantee that he would never leave again. After all, the treatment and resources that he could enjoy in this place were undoubtedly many times better than the outside world. As long as he was not a fool, he would definitely not easily leave this place. The Emperor Tribulation Pill was an Emperor-grade pill. For the current Xiao Yan, it was undoubtedly much easier to refine. Whether it was in terms of the strength of his spiritual strength or Do Qi, Xiao Yan did not feel any pressure refining an Emperor Tribulation Pill. It was also because of this that Xiao Yan planned to refine 4 Emperor Tribulation Pills at the same time. As soon as he thought of doing so, the lid of the medicinal cauldron was opened and 4 sets of medicinal ingredients for refining the Emperor Tribulation Pill were thrown into the medicinal cauldron by Xiao Yan. Soon after, the raging flame pounced on the medicinal ingredients like a hungry wolf. The frightening temperature was completely displayed at this moment. Each medicinal ingredient rapidly withered under the high temperature of the heavenly flame. Within a short 4 hours, all the medicinal ingredients that were thrown into the medicinal cauldron had turned into clusters of medicinal liquid and powder. With the increase in his strength, refining an Emperor-grade pill was as easy as flipping his hand for Xiao Yan. Even though he was refining 4 Emperor-grade pills at the same time, Xiao Yan was still able to easily refine them. Half a month. In less than half a month, it was time to fuse the 4 Emperor Tribulation Pills. Moreover, the purity of each cluster of medicinal liquid was impeccable and all of them were in their best condition. It was also because of this that the quality and medicinal properties of the pills refined would naturally be even more perfect. In the outside world, Tianning and the other 3 had also discovered Xiao Yan's unusual condition. Originally, they thought that the latter would look for them after he woke up. However, they did not expect that the latter would wake up and actually refine pills again. This fellow, don't tell me that he is already refining the Ice Spirit Pill. What a lunatic. No, that's impossible. I heard him say that the last medicinal ingredient needed to refine the Ice Spirit Pill, which is also the most important one, is the Ice Spirit Liquid. From the looks of it, he has yet to hand over the Bodhi returning pill to Sir. Therefore, it is impossible for him to obtain the Ice Spirit Liquid and even more impossible for him to start refining the Ice Spirit Pill. Tianning gently shook his head and retorted when he heard Xiongang's words. However, just as Xionggang was about to voice his doubts, the sky above Xiao Yan's head suddenly changed. The color of the sky changed and dark clouds churned. From the looks of it, pill lightning was gathering again. This is pill lightning. How can it be so fast? The last time, it took half a year. Why is this? Tianning and the other 2 were astonished. They did not expect the pill lightning to come so quickly this time. However, looking at this pill lightning, it seems to be much smaller than the previous one. The pills that he is refining should not be a tier 3 pill. Very quickly, the few of them found some clues from the pill lightning. This time around, the 4 of them did not move when the pill lightning appeared. They did not intend to step forward and help. With the experience from the last time, they clearly understood in their hearts that Xiao Yan did not need their help in dealing with this pill lightning. Soon after, thunderbolts fell from the high sky. Although Xiao Yan was refining D-tier medicinal pills, the pill lightning that was created by 4 D-tier medicinal pills was not weak. The merging of the 4 thunderbolts was undoubtedly even stronger. However, to the North King, these bolts of lightning were nothing. Even if the 4 bolts of pill lightning were to strike him together, they would not be able to withstand it. With the tempering of these thunderbolts, the purple-gold color on the Northern King's body became denser. After being struck by dozens of thunderbolts, the Northern King's strength had successfully advanced to a new level. Intermediate 2-star Do D. Of course, after exhausting all of these thunderbolts, the Northern King's strength had barely reached this level. It was likely that it was still lacking if it wanted to truly break through. Xiao Yan adopted an indifferent attitude toward this. It was merely a pill lightning that was ignited by a D-tier medicinal pill. He did not place much hope on it. At this moment, the only thing that could truly help the Northern King's strength was the pill lightning that was ignited by a tier 3 medicinal pill or above. Only then could it truly help the Northern King. These were merely small fries. After the pill lightning scattered, Xiao Yan easily kept the 4 medicinal pills into a jade bottle. After which, he put away the medicinal cauldron in front of him. He turned around and smiled as he looked at Tian Ying's group. After over half a year of painstakingly refining medicine, he had already obtained the returning Bodhisattva pill and the Emperor Calamity pill. Next, Xiao Yan only needed to wait for the icy spirit cold liquid to be ready before he could begin refining the icy spirit pill. Xiao Yan smiled and withdrew his thoughts. After which, he faced the 4 people from Tianying. /54_M Chapter 765 Shilin Mountain Range, within Tianying's cave dwelling. Xiao Yan, Tianying, and the rest were a total of 5 people. Each of them was seated in a large hall. Haha, young brother Xiao Yan, you have really caused us to be extremely anxious while refining the medicinal pill this time around. We are afraid that something will happen while you are refining the medicinal pill. If that happens, we will not be able to bear the responsibility. The flame lion first glanced at Ah Bao. Only then did he look at Xiao Yan and spoke in a seemingly joking manner. A glint involuntarily flashed deep within Xiao Yan's eyes when he heard this. He smiled and said, "Thank you for your concern. The medicinal pill refinement this time around can be considered smooth. In that case, the returning Bodhisattva pill has been successfully refined?" Even though he had already seen the pill lightning, Tianying still could not resist asking. Xiao Yan pursed his mouth and smiled when he heard this. He nodded and said, "I was lucky enough to succeed. I was lucky enough to successfully refine it. At least I didn't let you down. TSK, young brother Xiao Yan is really a genius of this generation. Not only do you possess great strength, but your medicinal pill refinement skills are also peerless in this world." Ha 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 ha. Sky Eagle smiled, his words actually having a hint of flattery in them. Soon after, everyone present began to laugh out loud. After which, they joked a little before Xiao Yan withdrew his emotions. His expression became serious as he said, "Brothers, this time around, I have something that I intend to give to everyone." Xiao Yan purposely smiled mysteriously after saying these words. After which, he flipped his hand and a jade bottle appeared in Xiao Yan's palm. There were 4 round medicinal pills within the jade bottle. Despite being separated by the jade bottle, there was already a medicinal fragrance spreading from within, causing one to feel comfortable after smelling it. The quiet Do Qi within one's body actually began to leap at this moment. The expressions of Tianning and the other three immediately changed when they sensed the change in the aura within their bodies. They were involuntarily surprised in their hearts. Just what kind of medicinal pill was this? It was actually able to cause a change in their auras? Soon after, Tianying's eyes hardened. He seemed to already have an answer in his heart. His eyes were instantly lifted, stared at Xiao Yan, and exclaimed, Don't tell me this is, haha, old brother's guess is right. This is the Emperor Tribulation Pill. Hua! The expressions of the other three people present suddenly changed when the soft laughter from Xiao Yan's mouth sounded. All of them were surprised. Could it be that the medicinal pill that Xiao Yan had refined earlier was this Emperor Calamity Pill? With this thought in their hearts, the expressions of the few of them involuntarily changed as they looked at the 4 medicinal pills within the jade bottle. Their hearts were filled with hesitation as a fiery hot emotion involuntarily rose from the bottom of their hearts. The Emperor Calamity Pill. As long as they possessed this thing, the strength of the few people present would have a chance to advance by another step. Using it to break through to the Do-D class was undoubtedly the greatest dream of the few of them. In the past, they had no dealings with humans. They could even be said to treat humans as enemies. There was no chance for them to obtain the Emperor Tribulation Elixir. But now, the Emperor Tribulation Elixir was placed in front of them, causing them to be at a loss. Xiao Yan involuntarily smiled when he saw this scene. After which, he lifted his other hand. A glow flashed in his palm and a jade box appeared. The moment the jade box appeared, a dense bloody aura that could not be hidden spread out from the jade box. The expressions of the other 4 people present suddenly changed wildly. An extremely great pressure involuntarily spread within their hearts. It was not difficult to imagine just what kind of horror they were feeling in their hearts at this moment. Brother Xiao Yan, what is this thing? Faced with this frightening aura, even with Tianying's character, his aura involuntarily trembled. This kind of suppression that originated from deep within his soul caused him to have difficulty raising his head. This is the monster core of a 5-star Do-D class magical beast. I obtained it from the auction. Xiao Yan did not dare to joke any longer when he saw that the 4 people in front of him had actually revealed such a terrified manner. His face was serious as he spoke. The few of them slowly sighed in relief when they heard these words. A moment ago, they had really had difficulty moving under that frightening pressure. However, after learning that the thing within the jade box was an inanimate object, they no longer had anything to worry about. However, the shocking pressure from the magical beast still caused their minds to be uneasy. I intend to give this thing to all of you. If you are able to swallow and refine it, with the help of this Emperor Calamity Pill, your strength will definitely be able to stabilize at the 1-star Do-D class for a short period of time. A thought passed through Xiao Yan's mind. A thin layer of Do-Chi covered the surface of the jade box, removing that strange pressure. After which, he handed it to Tianning and spoke in a gentle voice. The hearts of the 4 people in front of him involuntarily moved when these words were spoken. This was especially the case for Ah Bao. After hearing that this thing was actually for Tianying's group, his heart involuntarily felt a sense of disappointment. His eyes occasionally glanced at the jade bottle in Xiao Yan's other hand. There were only 4 medicinal pills within it. Currently, Xiao Yan's strength was merely that of a bandit. It was likely that he did not intend to prepare anything for him. Ah Bao's originally lowered head even further when he thought of this. Xiao Yan did not care if Tianning was willing to accept it. He still handed the monster core to him. After which, he opened the jade bottle. With a flick of his finger, the 4 Emperor Calamity pills within the jade bottle flew out under the control of Xiao Yan's mind. They were suspended in front of Tianying's group and Ah Bao. The 3 Tianning brothers anxiously stored the medicinal pills suspended in front of them into their clothes. Ah Bao, on the other hand, did not see the medicinal pills suspended in front of him because he had lowered his head. Ah Bao. Xiao Yan softly called out. Ah Bao immediately appeared to have been electrocuted. He instantly straightened his body. Soon after, he saw the Emperor Calamity pill suspended in front of him. Take this. Xiao Yan laughed softly. However, this caused Ah Bao to be stunned. He seemed to suspect that his ears had misheard. He could not help but ask Xiao Yan again. After receiving Xiao Yan's confirmation, he was wild with joy as he snatched the medicinal pills in front of him from the air. It was as if he was afraid that Xiao Yan would take them back. Xiao Yan smiled faintly when he saw this. He did not say anything else. After chatting with the 4 people in front of him for a while, they headed towards the narwhal snake's location under Tianying's lead. Along the way, Tianying was quite surprised that Xiao Yan actually knew about the narwhal snake's location. He did not expect that Xiao Yan had actually seen through Leng Bingshuang's plan. With regards to this, Xiao Yan casually brushed it off with a few vague words. Xiao Yan did not explicitly say that he already knew about the narwhal snake's location a year ago. This could be considered as leaving some leeway between them. A moment later, Xiao Yan and Tianying arrived deep underground. However, there was nothing in the scorching magma space. /54_ M. Chapter 766. Inside the scorching hot underground magma space. Xiao Yan and Sky Eagle stood there. Other than the 2 of them, there was nothing else. Even Xiao Yan could not help but feel a little surprised when he saw the scene in front of him. He clearly remembered that the narwhal snake was within this realm a year ago. Why was it that there was not the slightest trace of it now? Shock was written all over Xiao Yan's face. Since Sky Eagle had brought him here, the narwhal snake must be here. However, why was there no sign of it? Just as Xiao Yan turned his head, he saw Sky Eagle's lips curling into a smile. Brother Xiao Yan, looks like even you did not discover its whereabouts. Sky Eagle smiled and seemed to be rather satisfied with this. There was even a tinge of pride in his smile. Brother Sky Eagle, what is going on? Sky Eagle grinned when he saw Xiao Yan frowning. After which, he lifted his hands and the seals in his hands changed. After a few breaths, the magma in front of Xiao Yan and Sky Eagle suddenly became illusory and disappeared. At the same time, a huge creature appeared in front of the 2 of them. The creature that appeared in front of the 2 of them was an extremely huge snake. However, unlike ordinary snake-type magical beasts, it had a single horn that was shaped like lightning on its head. It was the narwhal snake. This is a formation? It is a formation. However, this is a natural formation. Xiao Yan frowned in confusion. Sky Eagle, who was beside him, smiled and explained. Oh? A formation can be formed naturally? Xiao Yan knew that all living things in the world, including beasts, flowers, and birds, were born from nature. However, Xiao Yan really did not expect that the world could create such a mysterious formation. Brother Xiao Yan, there is something that you do not know. A formation is similar to Do Qi. They are both energy from the universe. However, the method of using them is different. Overall, they are still connected. Those energies that exist in the universe can be used by humans because humans are able to successfully arrange them. Hence, they can be controlled. The reason why a formation like this can exist is because it has been correctly arranged after countless changes in history. That is all. Xiao Yan finally understood in his heart when he heard this. This world was filled with various kinds of coincidences. At this moment, this mysterious formation that had appeared in front of her was just like the falling star pavilion on the Do Qi continent. Did it not borrow a meteorite from outer space to create the star realm, resulting in the falling star pavilion? After understanding this point, Xiao Yan immediately nodded. After which, he withdrew his thoughts and looked at the narwhal snake. After a year, the energy stratum on the narwhal snake's body did not change much. However, Xiao Yan could faintly feel that the narwhal snake's aura was gradually rising. From the looks of it, its strength had likely exceeded that of a 4-star Do D. Xiao Yan's heart rejoiced because of this. Even though the narwhal snake still needed quite a long time to refine the energy cuticle, its training path was at the very least much more stable than Xiao Yan's. This caused Xiao Yan's heart to feel a little unfair. Xiao Yan's heart was filled with joy. However, Xiao Yan immediately felt relieved. Everyone was like this. There was no such thing as fairness in this world. There were thousands of ways to obtain strength, but the goal was the same. Some people's path was destined to be smooth while some people's path was destined to be bumpy. However, as long as one wanted to become strong, one had to continue walking. No matter what the road ahead was, even if it was a mountain of knives or a sea of fire, as long as one wanted to become strong, one had to continue walking. Even if one's path was as flat as a grassland, it did not mean that there was no danger in the grassland. A seemingly flat grassland might be a bottomless swamp in the next step. Compared to these invisible dangers, looking at it from another angle, perhaps the mountain of knives and sea of fire in front of one's eyes would make one feel more at ease. The path of a strong person was full of hardships and difficulties. There were no shortcuts in training. If one wanted to become strong, the best way was to be down to earth and take one step at a time. After seeing the narwhal snake, Xiao Yan's next goal was to head straight for the hinterland of Shilin. That was the final destination of Xiao Yan's journey to the Shilin mountain range. After bidding farewell to Sky Eagle and the other three, Xiao Yan set off alone and flew towards the hinterland of Shilin. After a few hours, the sunlight between heaven and earth gradually dimmed. The originally lush land was gradually covered by ice and snow. The temperature between heaven and earth also gradually became cold. The cold wind whistled and the snow danced wildly. The entire world was filled with bitter cold. The snow spread to the ends of one's sight. Xiao Yan's figure was not affected by the cold wind at all. Gradually, the area behind him was also filled with a vast expanse of snow. In front of Xiao Yan's eyes, a slightly blurry mountain stood in front of him like a giant beast. At this point, Xiao Yan's forward footsteps could not help but pause. In his mind, a graceful figure involuntarily flashed out. It was Wuxia Xianxia. Sigh, I wonder how that girl is doing now. Ah, in short, she is better than me. Her fourth uncle's strength is extremely frightening. The clan behind him should not be weak either. Xiao Yan muttered a few words in his heart for no reason. Only then did he withdraw his thoughts. With a flip of his hand, a palm-sized jade tablet appeared in his hand. It was Qi Hanyu. This thing was given to him by Leng Bingshuang back then. He remembered that she had given him and Wuxia Xianxia one each. The purpose was to allow them to safely enter the hinterland of Shilin in the future. After taking out the Qi Hanyu, a thought passed through Xiao Yan's mind. A thread of Do Qi followed his palm and poured into it. Immediately, an invisible energy barrier was released from the Qi Hanyu in his hand. It wrapped around the space within a dozen feet around Xiao Yan. The biting cold wind was isolated far away. Xiao Yan's body felt much more relaxed. Without any hesitation, Xiao Yan instantly used the sky extinction step. In the blink of an eye, his body had already crossed the tall mountain in front of him and swiftly flew towards the deep regions. Although the hinterland of Shilin was the hinterland, it was still quite large. With Xiao Yan's speed, he roughly searched for a direction in his heart. However, he still spent nearly 4 hours before he found the underground ice palace that Leng Bingshuang had stayed in back then. After finding the entrance, Xiao Yan successfully entered Leng Bingshuang's underground ice palace with the help of Qi Hanyu. Back then, his spiritual strength was still weak and Xiao Yan did not clearly sense it. However, the moment Xiao Yan took his first step into the ice palace, he clearly sensed the location of the icy spirit cold fountain within the ice palace. Chapter 767. The interior of the ice palace was very spacious. Due to his injuries last time, Xiao Yan did not have the opportunity to explore it properly. However, this time, Xiao Yan's target was clear. He was going straight for the icy spirit frozen spring. After entering the ice palace, the first thing that entered his eyes was the courtyard buildings that looked like ordinary courtyards. The only difference was the materials used. All the buildings here were carved out of ice. Even though there was only one type, it still had a different kind of beauty. At this moment, Xiao Yan did not have the time to care about these. After entering the ice palace, Xiao Yan quickly headed in the direction of the icy spirit frozen spring. However, it was only at this moment that Xiao Yan suddenly realized that ever since he entered the ice palace, his spiritual energy was restricted by something. In other words, the current him could only rely on the general direction in his memory to find the icy spirit frozen spring. Right now, other than searching around the ice palace, there was no other way. This caused Xiao Yan to feel helpless. However, at the same time, Xiao Yan's heart involuntarily felt a little doubtful. Why was it that he did not see Lengbing Shuang's figure this time around? Logically speaking, she should have discovered that the Bodhisattva returning pill had been refined. Why was it that she was still unwilling to show herself even now? With doubts in his heart, Xiao Yan continued to move forward. If he could find the icy spirit frozen spring, he would take it himself first. At the very most, when he met her again in the future, he would give the Bodhi returning pill to her. At this moment, Xiao Yan's mind was filled with thoughts of the icy spirit frozen liquid. How could he be in the mood to care about how frightening Leng Bingfeng's strength was? The size of the ice palace had clearly exceeded Xiao Yan's imagination. From the beginning until now, he had already walked around the ice palace for 2 hours. During this time, there were many times when he reached a dead end. Helplessly, he took a few more turns and suffered a few more setbacks. Although he could clearly feel that he was getting closer and closer to the icy spirit frozen spring, it was as if there was a wall between them. This caused Xiao Yan's heart to be filled with anxiety. Fortunately, the heavens did not disappoint those who persevered. After half a day of searching, the clear sound of flowing water finally reached Xiao Yan's ears. This was definitely the icy spirit cold fountain. Finally found it. Immediately, Xiao Yan felt a great joy in his heart. As he carefully listened to the direction of the water sound, his footsteps swiftly moved in that direction. However, at a certain moment, a soft painful moan was transmitted into Xiao Yan's ear. Judging from the voice, it was obviously a woman. Huh! Xiao Yan's body shuddered when he heard the moaning. He turned his gaze to look at the courtyard to his left. He could clearly hear the moaning coming from there. What's going on? How could there be someone here? Even if there was someone, it should only be a cold woman. But what's going on? From the voice, Xiao Yan could clearly hear an extremely painful emotion. It was unimaginable that the owner of the voice was enduring an unimaginable pain. On one side was the icy spirit frozen spring and on the other was a woman moaning in pain. Even though Xiao Yan did not like to meddle in other people's business, this was after all Leng Bingshuang's territory. No matter who this person was, if something happened to the latter, Leng Bingshuang would not let him off so easily when she returned. After making a decision in his heart, Xiao Yan finally let out a deep sigh. He violently clenched his teeth and his gaze once again looked at the direction where the sound of water was coming from. Somewhat unwillingly, he turned into the courtyard on the left. After entering the courtyard, Xiao Yan first asked a question. However, the moaning sound from the room in the courtyard was forcefully suppressed. Obviously, the sudden entry of an outsider like Xiao Yan had caused the owner of the courtyard to be extremely surprised. The sudden disappearance of the moaning sound also caused Xiao Yan to involuntarily frown. He did not think too much in his heart as he stepped forward and opened the door to the room in the courtyard. Immediately following this, a frightening Douqi pillar swiftly drew across Xiao Yan's face the moment the door was opened. If that person's body was not in pain at this moment, it was likely that Xiao Yan's head would have already been separated from his body. Being ambushed by this frightening Douqi pillar caused Xiao Yan's heart to be both shocked and furious. His body flashed and he immediately entered the room. Soon after, however, when Xiao Yan focused his eyes and looked over, the scene that appeared in front of him caused his body to instantly freeze on the spot. At this moment, on the ice bed in the room, a delicate and graceful figure was curled up on the ice bed while trembling intensely. Her entire body had turned icy blue, as if she was an ice sculpture. It was so much so that one could faintly see the traces of her bones through her skin. However, the thing that caused Xiao Yan to feel the most astonished was the stunning face of this beautiful figure. Looking at her face, she was the overlord of the Shilin mountain range, Lengbing Shuang. At this very moment, the dignified overlord of the Shilin mountain range appeared as weak as a dead person. It was likely that the attack she had used to attack Xiao Yan earlier was already her final move. From Xiao Yan's position, he could clearly see that at this moment, there were tears continuously dripping from the corners of this exceptional beauty's eyes. Unfortunately, the moment the tears fell, they had already turned into ice shards and landed on the ice bed. Seeing this scene, Xiao Yan could not help but be slightly startled. He was even a little surprised in his heart. What exactly had happened? Ugh! Immediately, when Lengbing Shuang could not help but let out a low moan from her nose, Xiao Yan hurriedly regained his senses. He hurriedly took a few steps forward and arrived in front of Lengbing Shuang. Under the latter's helpless and struggling gaze, he carried Lengbing Shuang's ice-cold body up. After which, he hurriedly took out his own clothes from his storage ring and spread them all over the ice bed. Only then did he put Lengbing Shuang's delicate body down. With a flick of his finger, a beautiful flame swiftly shot out. The temperature of the entire room immediately rose by a lot. After doing all this, Xiao Yan ignored the latter's struggling gaze and grabbed Lengbing Shuang's ice-cold wrist. With a thought, the heavenly flame in his body flowed through his meridians and entered Lengbing Shuang's body from his palm. It was also at this moment that an even colder energy in Lengbing Shuang's body, like a ferocious beast, instantly swallowed the heavenly flame that Xiao Yan had just merged into her body. Ugh! This sudden turn of events caused Xiao Yan to involuntarily let out a muffled groan. However, Xiao Yan once again grabbed Lengbing Shuang's wrist and fiercely clenched his teeth. An even more ferocious heavenly flame flowed into Lengbing Shuang's body under Xiao Yan's control. Chapter 768. In the Ice Palace in the hinterland of Shilin. Xiao Yan's hand, which had turned red from the cold, was still holding Lengbing Shuang's cold wrist tightly. He did not care about Lengbing Shuang's struggle. The heavenly fire in his body surged into Lengbing Shuang's body again and again, but it was swallowed by the strange ice. Damn it! What is going on? After a couple of fruitless attempts, Xiao Yan's heart involuntarily became somewhat anxious. Although his relationship with Lengbing Shuang could not be considered good, the latter had once saved his life. Even though the two of them had their own motives, that was that. Xiao Yan must help Lengbing Shuang resolve the matter today no matter what. Elder Gu, take a look. What is going on? Xiao Yan had no choice but to place all his hopes on Guyu. Hey, you brat! You are pushing this matter on me again. Guyu laughed and scolded him. After that, he separated a wisp of his spiritual energy and injected it into Lengbing Shuang's body through Xiao Yan's arm. It was as the saying went. In the face of absolute power, any resistance was useless. Just like now, when Guyu's wisp of spiritual energy was injected into Lengbing Shuang's body, the originally menacing cold air receded rapidly like a tide. It was no longer as domineering as it had been when it had faced Xiao Yan's heavenly fire. Guyu's spiritual energy circled Lengbing Shuang's body once before it was withdrawn. However, what Guyu said next made Xiao Yan's face turn gloomy. This little girl's current situation is not very optimistic. Guyu's voice sounded a little heavy. From this point alone, Xiao Yan could feel the seriousness of the situation. For Guyu to say such pessimistic words, how could it be so easy to solve this problem? Elder Gu, what is going on with her? Xiao Yan's brows were tightly knit together. Regardless of whether it was based on emotion or reason, he could not sit back and do nothing about this matter. Do you still remember why this girl wants the Bodhi pill back? Xiao Yan was slightly stunned. Then, as if he had thought of something, he raised his eyebrows and said in surprise, "Is it the cold poison in her body?" "That's right. I'm afraid that this girl has been injured for quite some time. She's been delaying it for a long time. In addition, this is an extremely cold place to begin with." The cold poison flared up again and again, getting more and more serious each time. Now, she can't withstand the power of the cold poison and can only let it spread. Gu Yu's tone was grave as he explained to Xiao Yan. The latter's expression involuntarily changed upon hearing this. It was unexpected that the cold poison within Leng Bingshuang's body was even more frightening than he had expected. Normally, when Leng Bingshuang appeared in front of others, she always had a strong and domineering aura, causing others to be intimidated by her. But who knew what kind of intense and unbearable pain she was enduring under her strong appearance? In order to protect the Shilin mountain range, Leng Bingshuang had already endured a lot alone. Thinking of this, Xiao Yan did not dare to hesitate any longer. With a flip of his palm, he quickly took out the Bodhi returning pill and fed it to Leng Bingshuang. "Wait." At this moment, Gu Yu suddenly spoke to stop Xiao Yan. "The cold poison within this girl's body has already accumulated to an unimaginable level. It is likely that it will be very difficult to completely eradicate it with just the Bodhi returning pill. It will not be of much use if you feed it to her now. What should I do?" Xiao Yan hurriedly withdrew his extended hand after hearing Gu Yu's words. He frowned and hurriedly asked Gu Yu in his heart. "The best method now is to use the heavenly flame to nourish her body. Once the cold poison has been suppressed a little, use the Bodhi returning pill to completely eradicate the hidden danger." Gu Yu's words had just sounded when Xiao Yan suddenly felt his head swell. A wave of information surged into Xiao Yan's mind. The method that Gu Yu had given him was to inject the heavenly flame into the few spots on Leng Bingshuang's body where the cold poison was the weakest. This would remove the cold poison within her body in the shortest amount of time. However, after Xiao Yan carefully organized the information in his mind, his old face involuntarily became boiling hot. Other than the head, there was also the neck, the heart, and the lower abdomen, where the vortex was located. These few spots were crucial to the human body and were also the places where one's energy was the most abundant. Logically speaking, there was nothing wrong with the information that Gu Yu had given him. However, its location caused Xiao Yan to feel a little embarrassed. These few spots were undoubtedly the most sensitive parts of a woman's body. Once he touched them, Xiao Yan did not dare to imagine whether this woman would tear him apart in a fit of anger after she recovered. Gulp gulp, even with Xiao Yan's mental fortitude, he involuntarily felt a chill run down his spine when he thought of this. His throat rolled slightly as he swallowed a mouthful of saliva. "Old Gu, you are not purposely trying to trick me, are you?" The corner of Xiao Yan's mouth twitched a little as he awkwardly smiled and asked in his heart. Heh, with your level, you should be able to see it. Other than the few places that I have given you, what other methods do you think can save her? You have also seen it earlier. With the might of the cold poison, it is impossible for your heavenly flame to enter her body. If you were to forcefully enter her body, it would instead harm her body. Since you do not wish to harm her, and yet you wish to save her, the method that I have given you is already the safest. If you are unwilling, then there is nothing that I can do." Gu Yu laughed, but the words that he said left Xiao Yan unable to refute. Gu Yu was right. The few spots that he had pointed out were indeed the weakest parts of Leng Bingshuang's body. Other than this, there was no other method for Xiao Yan to inject the heavenly flame into her body. "Ugh, don't blame me." Xiao Yan helplessly laughed bitterly in his heart. Only then did he raise his eyes to look at the woman in front of him. At a glance, Leng Bingshuang was already close to fainting. During this short period of time, the cold poison in her body had become even more intense. Perhaps this was because she had sensed the threatening aura of Xiao Yan in the outside world. Gulp gulp, Xiao Yan's throat rolled as he slowly raised his trembling hand. He slowly moved it to Leng Bingshuang's lower abdomen. Just as Xiao Yan was about to place his hand on it, Leng Bingshuang, who was about to faint, suddenly opened her eyes. A pair of icy cold eyes stared at Xiao Yan in a manner that seemed to want to devour him. Her cold killing intent was not hidden at all. The expression on her pale face was extremely cold. She could not help but pause for a moment. A painful groan was emitted from her nose. After which, she spoke in a cold and solemn voice. "What are you trying to do?" The sudden appearance of this scene also caused Xiao Yan, who had just extended his hand, to withdraw it with a swoosh. His entire body abruptly shook at this moment and he could not help but take 2 steps back. The sudden action of the woman in front of him, which appeared to be the final radiance of the setting sun, nearly scared Xiao Yan out of his wits. His breath trembled as he inhaled a deep breath. Only then did Xiao Yan softly say, "The cold poison in your body is becoming more and more serious. Don't move. Let me help you expel the poison. Get lost. This king does not need you." Leng Bingshuang cried out furiously the moment Xiao Yan's words sounded. However, before she could finish speaking, the world in front of her turned black, and she immediately fainted. Chapter 769. Leng Bingshuang's delicate body was lying flat on the ice bed. Her beautiful eyes were tightly shut and she was not breathing. At a glance, the surface of Leng Bingshuang's body was actually covered with a thin layer of ice. Her entire body looked like a beautiful work of art. If it was not because Xiao Yan was already familiar with her, it was likely that anyone would have thought that she was really an ice sculpture. The thin layer of ice covered Leng Bingshuang's entire delicate body. Even the body under the layer of ice was actually suffused with an icy blue color. One could even faintly see the flesh and bones under it. Unfortunately, everything was already covered by the layer of ice. The current Leng Bingshuang could be said to have completely turned into a piece of ice from the inside out. It was as if it would shatter with a knock, causing one to not dare to carelessly touch it. However, it was also at this moment that within Leng Bingshuang's body, from her lower abdomen to the area above her chest, a small fiery red glow actually appeared within her body. That glow flickered faintly and erratically. It was as if a cluster of burning flames was really there. It looked extremely mysterious. This was the heavenly flame that Xiao Yan had injected into Leng Bingshuang's body. Leng Bingshuang had fainted, but Xiao Yan was still trembling with fear. He did not dare to be the slightest bit careless. At the same time that he tried his best to inject the heavenly flame into Leng Bingshuang's body, cold sweat that was as dense as raindrops continuously fell from his forehead. Every action that Xiao Yan made was extremely careful. He was afraid that he would once again wake this woman up. At that time, if he were to be misunderstood by her, it would really be a matter of life and death. Due to the fact that the invasion of the cold poison in these few areas was weaker, Xiao Yan's heavenly flame easily poured into them. However, due to the anxiety in Xiao Yan's heart, this process continued for a total of 4 hours. The result that he obtained was even more unsatisfactory. Fortunately, under Xiao Yan's continuous perseverance, Leng Bingshuang's body was finally gradually occupied by the heavenly flame. The areas that were currently flickering with red light in Leng Bingshuang's body were occupied by Xiao Yan's heavenly flame. At the same time, these areas were also the weakest parts of the cold poison. However, even so, Xiao Yan had still expended quite a lot of effort to send his heavenly flame into Leng Bingshuang's body. He turned his head back and looked at Leng Bingshuang. At this time, in Leng Bingshuang's body, the 3 energies each occupied one side, forming a tripod, not giving way to each other. Without a doubt, the most powerful of the 3 was the cold poison. After a long period of accumulation, the cold poison had become extremely powerful and terrifying. Even an origin transformation expert like Leng Bingshuang had fallen before it, so it was easy to imagine just how terrifying the cold poison was. As for the second power, it was naturally Leng Bingshuang's own Genesis Qi. As an origin transformation expert, the Do Qi in her body was gradually transforming into Genesis Qi. When Leng Bingshuang truly became a returnance expert, all the Do Qi in her body would transform into Genesis Qi. This was the rule of the Yuanwu continent, a path that every returnance expert had to take. Unfortunately, even though Leng Bingshuang had already reached the origin transformation realm, she had still fallen to the cold poison in the end. As for the third energy, it was naturally Xiao Yan's heavenly flame. Xiao Yan's heavenly flame was undoubtedly the weakest of the three. Even Genesis Qi could not withstand the cold poison, while Xiao Yan's heavenly flame was no match for the tremendous amount of Genesis Qi. Naturally, the existence of the heavenly flame was the weakest of the three. Of course, the fact that the heavenly flame was able to compete with the other two naturally meant that it had its own advantages. In terms of position, Xiao Yan's heavenly flame occupied a few of the most important organs in Leng Bingshuang's body. It could be said that pulling one part would affect the entire body. As long as Xiao Yan was able to properly protect these organs in Leng Bingshuang's body, the cold poison would not be able to threaten Leng Bingshuang's life regardless of how strong it was. In addition, the existence of the heavenly flame was an even greater threat to the cold poison. The heavenly flame was a divine object of extreme yang between heaven and earth. Even a living person would fear the power of the heavenly flame, let alone this kind of insidious poison that resided in the human body. Heavenly flames could be said to be the natural nemesis of the cold poison. Following the formation of the three-legged force, Xiao Yan in the outside world could not remain idle. Although the heavenly flame had already been poured into Leng Bingshuang's body, the cold poison's strength was too strong. Just by relying on his spiritual strength, Xiao Yan was unable to push through the cold poison to spread the heavenly flame. Hence, the only thing Xiao Yan could do now was to personally act. He used Leng Bingshuang's skin to control the spreading of the heavenly flame. During this process, Xiao Yan had to personally reach every spot where the heavenly flame spread. Wherever Xiao Yan's hand went, the heavenly flame would spread. The cold poison had already invaded Leng Bingshuang's limbs and bones. As for the Genesis Qi in her body, no matter how powerful it was, it could only protect her essence from being harmed. Initially, when Xiao Yan had just discovered this point, the expression on his old face was also extremely embarrassed. Putting it this way, did it not mean that if he wanted to help Leng Bingshuang expel all the cold poison within her body, he would need to let his hand pass over every inch of her skin? The thought of this made Xiao Yan's old face turn red. Besides this, there was also a deep sense of worry. Who knew if this woman would try to kill him after she woke up? After all, Leng Bingshuang had personally seen Xiao Yan's hand reach towards her lower abdomen before she fainted. For someone who was about to faint, especially a woman, it was difficult not to think about such a scene. While Xiao Yan was hesitating in his heart, the cold poison in Leng Bingshuang's body did not wait any longer. It was unwilling to be outdone by the heavenly flame that had suddenly interfered. The deep blue cold poison was like a thick fog in Leng Bingshuang's body as it spread in all directions. Wherever it passed, her meridians, blood, bones and internal organs were swiftly covered in a layer of ice. However, every time the fog neared the heavenly flame, it would swiftly melt away, emitting a faint sizzling sound in Leng Bingshuang's body before disappearing. However, even though the heavenly flame was the natural nemesis of the cold poison, as time passed, the cold poison that was continuously approaching the heavenly flame was also taking a step closer to Xiao Yan's heavenly flame. Under closer inspection, the internal organs that had originally recovered under the protection of Xiao Yan's heavenly flame were now showing signs of being covered in ice. The appearance of this scene caused Xiao Yan's heart to tighten. He knew that no matter what, he could no longer hesitate. Chapter 770. Inside the ice room, which was completely made of ice, a few fist-sized balls of brilliant flames were emitting a blazing heat in mid-air. Therefore, the temperature in this ice room, which seemed to be surrounded by ice on all sides, was not as low as one would imagine. Instead, there was a sense of warmth. Inside the ice room, there was an ice bed, which was covered with a man's clothes. An ice-cold beauty was lying on the bed with her beautiful eyes tightly shut, just like an ice sculpture, not moving at all. Xiao Yan removed a layer of the woman's long dress, revealing the smooth jade-like skin underneath. At this moment, Leng Bingshuang's entire body, only her chest and lower body were still covered by the long dress. A large portion of her body was exposed to the warm air, undoubtedly in front of Xiao Yan's eyes. Initially, Xiao Yan did not want to do this. However, in order to be able to clearly control the temperature and direction of the heavenly flame, so as to prevent Leng Bingshuang from getting hurt, he had no choice but to do this. Even though he was extremely nervous, saving a life was more important. Xiao Yan did not have the time to care about so many rules. At this moment, Xiao Yan was carefully extending 2 fingers, gently pressing on the delicate body of this peerless beauty in front of him, creating a small depression, allowing one to clearly feel the ice-cold yet smooth skin. Xiao Yan held his breath, not daring to be careless. His entire mind was in a highly tense state. His 2 fingers slowly moved on the woman's lower abdomen. There was not a trace of excess flesh on the smooth lower abdomen, the soft skin causing Xiao Yan's heart to involuntarily tremble. However, he still forcefully steadied his mind, doing his best to control the heavenly flame in Leng Bingshuang's body, gradually approaching the area occupied by the cold poison. The spreading of the heavenly flame was especially difficult. Xiao Yan had to ensure that Leng Bingshuang's body was not harmed while expelling the cold poison. This in itself was an extremely difficult test. Moreover, the cold poison was not weak. The expulsion of the heavenly flame also caused the cold poison to begin to retaliate. Hence, Xiao Yan's actions might appear gentle, but he would pause for a long time each time his finger landed. His goal was to control the heavenly flame, to expel the cold poison from the spots where his finger was pressed before continuing to move forward. This caused Xiao Yan's finger to move even more slowly. On this smooth skin, Xiao Yan's finger often needed 15 minutes to be able to move a short distance of an inch. One could imagine how difficult it was to do so. As time passed, Xiao Yan's fingertips gradually moved from Leng Bingshuang's smooth lower abdomen to her chest. First, her heart, then her lungs. Even with the isolation of a layer of robes, the unique softness that only existed on a woman's body caused Xiao Yan to involuntarily suck in a breath of cold air. The depths of his heart violently trembled. Xiao Yan's finger, which was pressed on Leng Bingshuang's delicate body, could not help but tremble slightly. Instantly, an even clearer and softer feeling rapidly stimulated Xiao Yan's body like a burst of electricity. His mind trembled and the heavenly flame in Leng Bingshuang's body almost lost control. Suddenly quivering, Xiao Yan's teeth fiercely bit the tip of his tongue. Instantly, a small piece of flesh on the tip of his tongue was bitten to pieces. An unbearable intense pain immediately spread throughout his body and reached the depths of his soul. In an instant, Xiao Yan completely regained his senses. Forcefully enduring the intense pain, Xiao Yan's other thoughts were completely withdrawn. He did not dare to be careless as he focused all his attention and hurriedly controlled the heavenly flame in Leng Bingshuang's body. A huge amount of spiritual force gushed out from Xiao Yan's fingertips, then passed through Leng Bingshuang's skin and entered her body. It quickly poured into the heavenly flame, causing it to calm down once again. After doing all this, Xiao Yan fiercely swallowed a mouthful of saliva. The sweet blood rolled down his throat, and with Xiao Yan's breathing, it once again surged up. It gradually spread out in his mouth and did not dissipate for a long time. Xiao Yan endured the intense pain, controlled his 2 fingers, and continued to walk on Leng Bingshuang's delicate body. After a full 2 hours, Xiao Yan's fingers finally moved away from Leng Bingshuang's proud chest. Then, it was the latter's snow-white neck. Huff huff. Only at this moment did Xiao Yan involuntarily pant a few times. The tense emotions in his heart finally relaxed. However, immediately after, Xiao Yan once again focused his attention. The process of expelling the cold poison had already been close to a day, but Xiao Yan was mentally exhausted. However, there was still quite a lot of cold poison in Lengbing Shuang's body. Until now, Lengbing Shuang's 4 limbs were still filled with the ice-blue cold poison. Her 2 arms were like ice crystals, and one could clearly see the bones under Lengbing Shuang's flesh through her skin. The places that Xiao Yan's heavenly flame had passed through were only Lengbing Shuang's upper body. Time flowed by. Xiao Yan's fingers gradually moved up Lengbing Shuang's neck. After a long time, after maintaining a conscious state for a few hours, Xiao Yan's emotions once again began to fluctuate. Unknowingly, one of the 2 fingers that were originally on Lengbing Shuang's neck actually fell down. As he controlled the heavenly flame, he also felt the latter's soft and smooth skin. The bottom of his heart was slightly agitated. Immediately after, 4 fingers, 5 fingers. Finally, his entire palm gently landed on Lengbing Shuang's upper body and unconsciously began to wander. However, until a certain moment, Lengbing Shuang, who was originally quietly lying down, seemed to have felt the gentle caress from her body. Her nose involuntarily emitted a soft moan. Swoosh! In an instant, Xiao Yan regained his senses. His chest felt as if it had been hit by a hammer. His entire body violently leaned forward, and the breath that was held in his chest was completely spat out. His face instantly became incomparably red. Only after a long while did Xiao Yan gradually regain his senses. The instant he lifted his head, he clearly saw that his palm was actually pressing on the chest of this ice beauty in front of him. Ugh! After a brief stupefaction, Xiao Yan's Adam's apple bobbed slightly as his face instantly turned as red as if it had been set on fire. Xiao Yan hurriedly withdrew his hand. Although it was unintentional, the soft warmth that had spread from his palm caused his heartbeat to abruptly quicken. At the same time, an extremely ominous premonition swiftly surged from the bottom of his heart. As the frost poison was gradually expelled, the Genesis Qi in Lengbing Shuang's body gradually gained the upper hand. The balance of power was gradually tilting. Lengbing Shuang slowly woke up, as if she had just woken up from a long dream. Her consciousness, however, was still stuck at the moment before she had entered the dream. Gradually, at a certain moment, this sleeping beauty, who had been in a deep slumber for a long time, slowly woke up. The moment her pair of pretty eyes opened, she saw Xiao Yan in front of her, whose face was completely red. Chapter 771. Within the ice room, 2 figures, one black and one white, were standing opposite each other. The person wearing the black robe was a man. His face was crimson red and his lips were strangely pale. His aura was weak and his mouth was constantly panting heavily. Opposite him, the one whose delicate body was wrapped in a long dress was a beauty that could topple the world. Her pretty face was ice-cold as she stared at the black-robed man with killing intent. Lengbing Shuang's fair jade-like hand suddenly clenched in mid-air. In an instant, an ice-blue long sword that was 3 fingers wide appeared in her hand. The tip of the sword pointed directly at the spot between Xiao Yan's eyebrows. Xiao Yan, what have you done to me? When she recalled her disheveled appearance when she woke up, Lengbing Shuang's heart could not help but be filled with shame and anger. The expression on her pretty face alternated between green and white. The hand that was holding the long sword could not help but tremble slightly. At the same time, the killing intent in her heart crazily surged. When he heard Lengbing Shuang's words, the pale-faced Xiao Yan could not help but be startled. He glanced at his right hand, which had unknowingly turned ice blue, and quickly kept it in his sleeve. After which, he looked at Lengbing Shuang opposite him and swallowed a mouthful of saliva with difficulty. The blood in his mouth that had yet to dissipate caused Xiao Yan's head to feel dizzy. If I said that I did this to help you expel the cold poison, would you believe me? Xiao Yan gently shook his head, trying his best to dispel the dizziness in his mind. It was a long while later before he weakly said, "You still dare to quibble after doing something, you're courting death." When he heard Xiao Yan's words, the killing intent in Leng Bingshuang's heart became even thicker. When he was awake, he faintly realized some of the things that had happened previously. The so-called healing, could it be that one could heal one's hand on someone else's chest? Immediately, Leng Bingshuang's wrist jerked and the long sword in her hand danced. The sword viciously pierced towards Xiao Yan's chest. In the blink of an eye, the long sword was about to pierce into Xiao Yan's chest. It was also at this moment that the giddy Xiao Yan suddenly felt everything in front of him turn black. His entire body immediately fell backward and coincidentally dodged the sword that was thrusting toward him. However, even so, the sharp edge of the sword still easily tore through the black robe on Xiao Yan's chest, leaving behind a deep wound on Xiao Yan's chest. Dark red blood immediately gushed out, but before it could land, it had already been instantly frozen in this ice cave-like room. In the next moment, with a muffled bang, Xiao Yan's body heavily fell onto the ground of the ice room. Fresh blood continuously gushed out and froze on the wound on Xiao Yan's chest. At the same time that the wound was sealed, the icy cold air also continuously poured into Xiao Yan's body. Seeing this scene, Leng Bingshuang originally wanted to ignore him and leave him to die under the cold air. However, just as she was about to pass by Xiao Yan, the left hand under Xiao Yan's sleeve unconsciously opened. Immediately after, a jade bottle rolled out and appeared in Leng Bingshuang's line of sight. As the jade bottle slid out, a rich pill fragrance immediately spread out. Even though it was separated by the jade bottle, Leng Bingshuang could still feel the blazing energy aura within the pill. This is, Leng Bingshuang's beautiful eyes narrowed. She couldn't help but feel bewildered. With a wave of her hand, the jade bottle on the ground rose up and was received by Leng Bingshuang. With a forceful shake, the jade bottle immediately turned into powder. After that, a scarlet pill gradually appeared in front of Leng Bingshuang's eyes. An even richer pill fragrance pounced on Leng Bingshuang's face. Leng Bingshuang merely inhaled a breath before she immediately felt the still rampant cold poison in her body swiftly shrink back. This is, the Bodhi returning pill. Leng Bingshuang cried out in surprise in her heart. She immediately swept her gaze towards Xiao Yan, who had already fainted at her feet. A trace of astonishment flashed across her beautiful eyes. She didn't expect that Xiao Yan had actually successfully refined the Bodhi returning pill. Moreover, looking at the color of this pill, its quality was definitely not bad. This fellow is really a terrifying person. Even so, you still have to pay the price for what you did to this prince. Leng Bingshuang couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. Immediately after, the expression on her beautiful face instantly turned ice-cold. With a twist of her wrist, the long sword in her hand immediately pointed downwards and pierced towards Xiao Yan's chest. However, in the next instant, Leng Bingshuang's hand movement once again stopped. Her beautiful eyes stared at Xiao Yan's deathly pale face, then glanced at the long sword wound on his chest. The Bodhi returning pill that was held in her other jade-like hand was returned to her storage ring. Leng Bingshuang's beautiful eyes were tightly shut. Her shapely eyebrows were almost knitted together. She was constantly struggling in her heart. Should she stab down with this sword or not? After struggling for a while, the long sword in her jade-like hand fiercely fell. Just as it was about to pierce Xiao Yan's chest, it exploded with a bang and turned into a ray of light, which was kept into Leng Bingshuang's storage ring. Humph. You can take this pill as a form of repayment for what happened just now. As for the icy spirit frost liquid, don't even think about getting it. With a cold rebuke, Leng Bingshuang waved her sleeve. An invisible force swept up Xiao Yan's body and heavily smashed him onto the ice bed. Although her actions seemed fierce, in reality, with Xiao Yan's physical strength, how could this kind of impact hurt him? Leng Bingshuang's actions were only to vent her anger. After doing all this, Leng Bingshuang couldn't be bothered with Xiao Yan anymore. She didn't care if he was dead or alive. She walked out. Now that she had obtained the Bodhi returning pill, she had to make some preparations to swallow it. In the blink of an eye, only the unconscious Xiao Yan was left in the ice room. This scene was somewhat similar to when Xiao Yan had first stepped into this place. However, the roles had been switched. At this moment, Xiao Yan's right hand under his sleeve was icy blue. Within his palm, an extremely cold qi was following Xiao Yan's qi paths and gradually spreading towards his arm. This qi was the cold poison that originally existed in Leng Bingshuang's body. After expelling the cold poison for Leng Bingshuang for a long time, a portion of the cold poison in Leng Bingshuang's body had unknowingly flowed into Xiao Yan's body. Although the heavenly flame in Xiao Yan's body tried to resist, Xiao Yan was already exhausted from expelling the cold poison for Leng Bingshuang. Not only had he used up more than half of his spiritual strength, but even the dou qi in his body was almost depleted. At this moment, the cold poison was surging and Xiao Yan had fainted. He was completely powerless to resist. Ugh, this stinking brat. He tried to steal a chicken only to end up losing the rice used to lure it. I was thinking of throwing out the Bodhi returning pill and wishing you a good marriage. Who could have imagined that it would end up like this? Deep within Xiao Yan's soul, Guyu let out a disappointed sigh. He sensed the cold poison that was gradually spreading within Xiao Yan's arm. He was just about to intervene when he seemed to have discovered something and paused. Chapter 772. Inside the empty ice room, a pale-faced Xiao Yan was lying flat on the ice bed. At this moment, Xiao Yan's entire right arm had turned into an icy blue color. The surface of his arm seemed to be covered with a layer of ice armor. Through this layer of ice armor, one could see pieces of crystal-like scales. That was Xiao Yan's Dragon Phoenix ancient armor. When the cold poison invaded Xiao Yan's body and sealed the interior of his arm with ice, it also activated Xiao Yan's Dragon Phoenix ancient armor. While Xiao Yan was unaware, it protected his body from harm. As time passed, the cold poison that had invaded Xiao Yan's body had almost filled Xiao Yan's entire right arm. However, that was all it could do. The cold poison that had entered Xiao Yan's body was only a small part of the cold poison in Leng Bingshuang's body. Being able to seal Xiao Yan's arm in ice was enough to prove how powerful the cold poison was. However, when the cold poison stopped, the heavenly flame that had been suppressed in Xiao Yan's body gradually recovered. The heavenly flame never stopped attacking the cold poison that had invaded Xiao Yan's right arm. However, the two of them were evenly matched. Within a short period of time, the cold poison was unable to cause any substantial harm to Xiao Yan's body. However, the heavenly flame was also unable to do anything to Xiao Yan. Finally, the cold poison was completely incinerated by the heavenly flame. After a long period of exhaustion, Xiao Yan's aura gradually recovered while he was in a deep slumber. However, this did not happen to the cold poison. As the cold poison was being refined by the heavenly flame, the threads of pure energy contained within the cold poison were swept by the heavenly flame and returned to Xiao Yan's vortex. The moment the extremely pure energy entered Xiao Yan's vortex space, it was swiftly broken apart. Compared to this thread of pure energy, Xiao Yan's dou qi was extremely weak. The moment the latter entered Xiao Yan's vortex space, it was immediately torn apart by the dou qi and replenished each other. In the blink of an eye, the dou qi that had been exhausted in the vortex space within Xiao Yan's body was actually completely recovered. This was not the end. With the replenishment of the energy, Xiao Yan's vortex space gradually swelled. The dou qi that was stored within even surpassed that of Xiao Yan at his peak condition. When the icy blue color that was wrapped around Xiao Yan's right arm completely disappeared, Xiao Yan's body involuntarily trembled slightly. His originally pale face had completely recovered. Swoosh! Quickly following this, Xiao Yan's tightly shut eyes suddenly opened. A glint instantly flashed deep within his dark black eyes. His skinny body shook slightly and a huge force immediately surged out. At the same time that the ice bed under him shattered, Xiao Yan's body also leaped up from it. After which, he steadily stood on the ground. At the same time this scene appeared, Lengbing Shuang, whose pretty eyes were originally tightly shut, slowly opened them at this moment in front of a small pool in another part of the ice palace. Her pretty eyes inadvertently glanced in the direction where Xiao Yan was located. A glint flickered in her pretty eyes before she once again shut them. Xiao Yan involuntarily raised his eyebrows as he sensed the abundant dou qi within his body. He wondered just how long he had been unconscious. The dou qi within his body had already recovered the moment he woke up. "Old Gu, how long have I been unconscious this time around?" Xiao Yan frowned and asked Guyu in his heart. He, I am not afraid of scaring you." 6 hours. Guyu laughed. The words that he uttered caused Xiao Yan to be momentarily stunned. 6 hours. Could it be that there was a problem with his ears after sleeping for a while? He clearly remembered that he had helped Lengbing Shuang heal her injuries before he had fainted. Xiao Yan's old face immediately became boiling hot when this thought suddenly appeared in his mind. He recalled the special feeling that had been transmitted from his hand back then and involuntarily lifted his hand to rub his nose. He sniffed gently. There seemed to be a certain fragrance remaining on his hand. Soon after, Xiao Yan discovered that the hand he had lifted was his right hand, which was roaming over Lengbing Shuang's lovely body back then. **Old Gu**, what is going on? Xiao Yan's face was red as he tried his best to withdraw his thoughts. Only then did he ask Guyu. He, smelly brat, originally I thought that you would not gain anything this time around. However, it seems that you have gained something. Guyu mischievously laughed as though he had seen through Xiao Yan's thoughts. He quickly explained to Xiao Yan what had happened in his body earlier. Xiao Yan came to a sudden understanding. He did not expect the cold poison to be so ferocious. Even though Xiao Yan was protected by a heavenly flame, it was still able to invade his body. Fortunately, Xiao Yan ultimately benefited from this disaster. The cold poison had accumulated in Lengbing Shuang's body over a long period of time and contained a lot of Lengbing Shuang's energy. After the energy was refined by Xiao Yan's heavenly flame, the pure energy returned to Xiao Yan. Of course, most of the Genesis Qi had scattered. Only a portion of Dou Qi could be used by Xiao Yan. As a result, Xiao Yan's advanced 6-star half-emperor cultivation had completely stabilized in a few short hours. Unlike other cultivation levels, the origin transformation realm was the most special. At this level, both Dou Qi and Genesis Qi existed in a cultivator's body. The two types of energy coexisted in the world and did not conflict with each other. However, to become a returnance expert, one needed to first convert all the Dou Qi in one's body into Genesis Qi. During this period of time, the Genesis Qi and Dou Qi would coexist and gradually transform. Once the Dou Qi was completely converted into Genesis Qi, one would become a returnance expert. As a result, Xiao Yan was able to obtain pure Dou Qi after his heavenly flame refined the energy from the cold poison. Don't celebrate too early. Although your strength has been stabilized, the Bodhi returning pill has already landed in that girl's hands. Oh? Xiao Yan's eyes immediately narrowed when he heard Guyu's words. Only then did he remember the main objective of this trip. That's right, the Bodhi returning pill and the icy spirit liquid. Don't even think about it. Do you think that girl won't kill you after you touched her body? It's all because of the Bodhi returning pill. She urgently needs the Bodhi returning pill to recover from her injuries, which is why she let you go. If it weren't for the cold poison in her body, she would have died long ago. Guyu gloated before Xiao Yan could finish his sentence. His words were like a bucket of cold water that had been poured over Xiao Yan's head. That girl has already taken the Bodhi returning pill. There's no hope for the icy spirit liquid anymore. Chapter 773. Xiao Yan stood stiffly in the ice room that was filled with cold air. His eyebrows were tightly knitted together and his heart was filled with many thoughts. What that woman said. Don't tell me she is really not going to give it to me. Xiao Yan's heart sank. The icy spirit frozen liquid was related to the ice spiritual pill. It was extremely important to him. No matter what, he could not afford to make any mistakes in this matter. Now that he had gathered all the medicinal ingredients he needed to refine the ice spiritual pill, he was only lacking the icy spirit frozen liquid. If anything went wrong, Xiao Yan would not be able to reverse the situation no matter how many tricks he had up his sleeves. Then, with her strength, how much of what she said would be false? Gulp, Xiao Yan's expression changed slightly. He seemed to have an answer in his heart. Don't tell me I have to go back like this, Xiao Yan said unwillingly. He had not expected that the situation would turn out like this. He had really suffered a double loss. Now, not only did he not give Leng Bingshuang any benefits, he had even lost the icy spirit frozen liquid. Without the icy spirit frozen liquid, how could he refine the ice spiritual pill? Without the ice spiritual pill, how could he swallow the heavenly flame? It was unbearable. Perhaps you can try here. Your current position is extremely close to the icy spirit frozen fountain. Perhaps you can refine some icy spirit frozen liquid from the air here. Xiao Yan helplessly sighed after Guyu uttered these words. Although he was unwilling in his heart, this was the only solution at this moment. Ugh, looks like this is the only way. Soon after, Xiao Yan was about to sit down. However, at this moment, Leng Bingshuang, who was sitting beside a pool in a certain part of the ice palace, had a drastic change in her expression. At the same time, on Xiao Yan's side, despite being isolated by the ice wall, Xiao Yan could faintly feel that the ice room he was in was trembling slightly. This is... What happened? It's the icy spirit frozen fountain. Let's go over quickly. Xiao Yan was unable to clearly sense it, but this did not mean that Guyu was unaware. With his enormous spiritual strength, this ice palace could not stop him. Xiao Yan's expression involuntarily changed when he heard Guyu's words. An ominous premonition immediately rose in his heart. Xiao Yan followed Guyu's guidance and hurriedly rushed in the direction of the icy spirit frozen fountain. At the edge of the pond that was about 500 feet in size, Leng Bingshuang's pretty face had an incomparably solemn expression. The aura that had yet to recover to its peak gushed out without reservation at this moment. Her pair of beautiful eyes stared fixedly at the pool in front of her, as if she was waiting for something. On the other side, Xiao Yan was getting closer and closer to the fountain under Guyu's guidance. However, in the blink of an eye, 15 minutes had already passed. After Xiao Yan had repeatedly passed through tens of alleys, the sight in front of him suddenly became clear. The buildings in front of him had all disappeared. Instead, there was a pool. At this very moment, there was a beautiful lady, whose lovely body was wrapped under a long white dress, standing in midair beside the pool. A vast and mighty force and pressure surged out from her without any reservation. An incomparably solemn expression appeared on her beautiful, pretty face. Ugh, Xiao Yan's heart sank when he saw Leng Bingshuang. Soon after, his eyes landed on the fountain in front of him. Icy spirit frozen fountain. Xiao Yan's heart shook. The fountain in front of him was the icy spirit frozen fountain that he had been bitterly searching for. The fountain water was undoubtedly the icy spirit frozen liquid. Immediately, Xiao Yan's face involuntarily revealed a fanatical expression. The final main ingredient to refine the icy spirit pill had appeared in front of him. It could be said that it was within reach. What are you doing here? Get lost. Leng Bingshuang's pretty face turned cold when she saw Xiao Yan arrive. Her tone was especially cold as she cried out. However, the fountain in the middle of the place suddenly began to churn intensely the moment Leng Bingshuang's words sounded. Boiling bubbles surged out from deep within the fountain. The moment they burst on the surface of the water, a large amount of cold air was released. It was like a white fog that swiftly spread. It was fine if there was only a small amount of cold fog. However, the cold fog that had appeared in front of Xiao Yan and Leng Bingshuang swiftly covered the surface of the fountain. The fog was so dense that it even blocked Leng Bingshuang's sight. Damn it! The frequency of the fountain erupting has been increasing recently. Leng Bingshuang's heart suddenly sank when she saw this scene. She hurriedly unleashed the remaining energy within her body and formed an energy barrier that covered the periphery of the fountain in an attempt to block the spreading of the fog. Chi. Even though Leng Bingshuang's method was effective, the moment the fog came into contact with the energy barrier, a thick white fog quickly rose between the two. The originally thick energy barrier was also rapidly melting at a speed visible to the naked eye. Damn it! Leng Bingshuang's pretty face changed. Currently, her condition was not at her peak. Hence, she did not have any extra strength to continue supporting the energy barrier. If this continued, it was likely that her energy barrier would shatter soon. However, at this critical moment, Xiao Yan swiftly stepped forward from behind. Compared to Leng Bingshuang, the current Xiao Yan's condition could not be any better. The dou qi in his body was like floodwater that had burst out of a dam as it swept out in all directions. It was mixed with a dense, heavenly flame as it once again covered the exterior of Leng Bingshuang's energy barrier. Chi. Immediately, the frighteningly high temperature swiftly dissolved the cold fog within the two layers of energy barrier. Although the cold fog was still rapidly increasing, it was likely that it would not be able to break through the energy barrier formed by the two within a short period of time. Leng Bingshuang finally breathed a long sigh of relief when she saw this scene. She turned her head as her eyes instantly turned incomparably cold. She stared at Xiao Yan and said in a frosty voice, "I've already told you to scram. Why are you still staying here?" This time, Xiao Yan's expression was relaxed. He smiled faintly and said, "If I leave, will you be able to deal with the ice spirit frozen fountain alone? Do I need a half-step emperor like you to interfere in the matters of this king?" Leng Bingshuang was enraged. The instant she raised her hand, she was just about to circulate the Genesis Qi in her body when she discovered that she no longer had even a sliver of Genesis Qi to move. "Save it. You should rest for a while in your current state. As for this thing, leave it to me." Xiao Yan smiled confidently. The worry within his heart had been completely eliminated within this short moment. His pair of dark black eyes were as calm as a deep pool in the past. His gaze stared at the pool within the energy barrier in front of him. A glint instantly flickered deep within his eyes. It flashed and disappeared. Even Leng Bingshuang did not discover it. Chapter 774. The age of the icy spirit cold spring was calculated by the size of the cold pool it formed. 1,000 years was 10 feet, 2,000 years was 20 feet, and so on. Now, the cold pool that appeared in front of Xiao Yan was at least 500 feet in size. From this, it could be concluded that this cold pool had existed for at least 5,000 years. 5,000 years. It was unknown how many eras had changed. This icy spirit cold spring had existed for a very long time. It was also because of this that the value of this icy spirit cold spring was obvious. As for the current situation of the icy spirit cold spring, it was a state of overflowing energy. This meant that the icy spirit cold liquid within the cold pool had accumulated to an extremely large amount, and the energy within it was unbelievably strong. Normally speaking, overflowing energy should not occur. This was because as the age of the icy spirit cold spring increased, the energy should have spread out on its own, causing the surface area of the cold pool to gradually increase and circulate on its own, causing the energy within the icy spirit cold spring to always be in a state of balance. Logically speaking, such a situation should not occur. However, because of some people, this situation occurred in the icy spirit cold spring. Needless to say, this person was naturally Leng Bingshuang. The hinterland of Shilin should not be surrounded by towering snowy mountains. The so-called Eastern Wall was Leng Bingshuang's masterpiece. On one hand, it was to prevent the energy within the icy spirit cold spring from spreading to the entire Shilin mountain range. On the other hand, it was to hide the existence of the icy spirit cold spring to prevent it from being discovered by some powerful factions. From the fact that the hinterland of Shilin had not been invaded by outsiders, Leng Bingshuang had obviously achieved her goal of hiding the icy spirit cold spring. However, at the same time, Leng Bingshuang had also left behind an extremely serious problem. The establishment of those snowy mountains caused the energy within the icy spirit cold spring to be unable to spread outwards. This was like a basketball that was already filled with air. All of this had clearly reached its limit. Constant inflation would only increase the pressure within it. When the basketball exploded, even the thickest iron sheet would not be able to stop it. Leng Bingshuang's method was like a basketball that was filled with air, constantly inflating. Now, the ice spirit cold fountain basketball had reached the point where it was about to explode. Once the ice spirit cold fountain had a solution, at that time, it would not only be the Shilin mountain range that would suffer, even Leng Bingshuang herself would suffer quite a bit of damage because of this. However, there was no turning back for Leng Bingshuang's actions. The establishment of those snowy peaks had caused the energy within the icy spirit cold spring to become increasingly vigorous. The direct result of this was that the energy that was constantly accumulating in the cold pool would erupt out uncontrollably. In the past, Leng Bingshuang could still forcefully suppress it. However, as time passed, after so many years, the energy that had accumulated in the icy spirit cold spring had reached an extremely terrifying level. Not to mention that Leng Bingshuang was not in her best state at the moment. Even if she was at her peak, she might not be able to suppress the energy within the cold pool. At this moment, the cold mist that was gushing outwards was only a small beginning. When the energy within the cold pool completely erupted, it would be truly terrifying. The reason why Leng Bingshuang had berated Xiao Yan earlier was probably because she knew what was going to happen next. Get out of here. Don't think that you have the ability to resolve this matter just because you have temporarily blocked the cold mist. You are merely borrowing the power of the heavenly flame. If you don't want to die, hurry up and get out of here. Leng Bingshuang clenched her silver teeth. Her beautiful face was filled with anger as she berated Xiao Yan once again, hoping that Xiao Yan would leave this place. After all, facing the continuous eruption of the cold pool, even she was becoming less and less confident that she could withstand it. Plop. However, the moment Leng Bingshuang's words left her mouth, a crack suddenly appeared on the energy barrier behind her. Immediately, a gust of cold air spurted out and spread out. Leng Bingshuang, who was the closest, was the first to bear the brunt. The long dress on her back was quickly covered by ice. In the blink of an eye, the dress on Leng Bingshuang's body was completely frozen. Her entire body seemed to be sealed under a layer of ice, unable to move. Upon seeing this, Xiao Yan's expression involuntarily changed slightly. Just as he was about to act, the crack on the energy barrier behind him grew larger and larger. Seeing that the energy barrier was about to shatter, Xiao Yan had no time to care about Leng Bingshuang in front of him. He hurriedly moved, waving his sleeve. Vigorous heavenly flames immediately spewed out, covering the sky as they pounced forward, once again blocking the cold mist. At the same time, Leng Bingshuang was struggling with all her might, continuously squeezing out the remaining traces of power in the cells in her body. It was only at a certain moment, after exhausting all her strength, that Leng Bingshuang forcefully condensed a thumb-sized ball of Genesis Qi within the vortex. This little bit of Genesis Qi was naturally unable to do anything in a battle, but at this moment, it was enough for Leng Bingshuang to shatter the layer of ice on the surface of her body. With a thought, the thumb-sized ball of Genesis Qi rapidly surged out along the meridians in her body. At the same time, Xiao Yan swiftly retreated with a grave expression. Guyu sensed that there was a tremendous force rapidly surging out from the depths of the ice spirit cold spring. The energy barrier was about to collapse. In the face of such a force, even Xiao Yan could only temporarily avoid it. The layer of cold ice on the surface of Leng Bingshuang's body also broke when Xiao Yan's body rushed back. Even her dress, which was covered by the cold ice, was shattered. The cold ice shattered and immediately turned into a pile of fragments. They fell down with a clear cracking sound. Immediately, Leng Bingshuang's snow-white lovely body was completely exposed to the air. At the same time, Xiaoyan's body also arrived in front of Leng Bingshuang, intending to bring her away from this place. However, the scene that suddenly appeared in front of him caused Xiaoyan, who had just flashed over, to instantly become dull. Xiaoyan's old face quickly turned boiling hot at the sight of the curvaceous and beautiful body in front of him. Leng Bingshuang also recovered her senses the moment the ice shattered, but it was too late. Because she had exhausted all the Genesis Qi in her body, a feeling of emptiness spread throughout her body, and she almost fell to the ground. Boom! However, in the next moment, one could hear a muffled thunder-like sound. The energy barrier that covered the entire cold pool was instantly shattered. Cold fog swiftly spread as a towering water pillar shot out from deep within the cold pool. Countless number of extremely cold water droplets scattered and swiftly shot across the interior of the ice palace. The sudden appearance of this scene caused Xiaoyan to instantly recover. He bitterly clenched his teeth and could not be bothered about anything else in his heart. He hurriedly took 2 steps forward, extended both of his hands, and pulled the naked Leng Bingshuang into his embrace. Following the exclamation from Leng Bingshuang's mouth, a large black robe wrapped around the both of them. Xiaoyan's feet moved. The sky extinction steps was unleashed to its limit. His entire body was even faster than lightning. Within the blink of an eye, he had disappeared from the side of this cold pool. Chapter 775. The extremely cold water pillar broke through the layers of thick ice at the top of the ice palace, finally bursting out of the snow and breaking through the thick white mist above Xilin's hinterland. Only when it saw the blazing sun in the sky did it stop. The water pillar exploded with a bang, turning into a torrential downpour that sprinkled throughout Xilin's hinterland. Wherever the cold rain fell, the ground instantly turned to ice. Xilin's hinterland, which was already covered in snow all year round, instantly felt even colder. Below, the icy lake in the ice palace was filled with cold mist. Through the huge hole directly above the lake, waves of biting cold wind rushed in from the outside world like a group of bandits, quickly plundering the ice palace. Xiaoyan's figure suddenly stood in the ice room where he had met Leng Bingsheng for the first time at a certain spot within the ice palace. At this moment, Xiaoyan was holding the weak Leng Bingshuang in his arms. Her originally soft and delicate body appeared even more delicate in the current situation. Her snow-white body emitted an even whiter light in the ice palace, as if she had just bathed in milk. Large patches of spring were exposed to the cold air. Without the support of Genesis Qi, how could her body withstand such extreme cold? Leng Bingshuang's face rapidly paled, and her delicate body could not help but tremble. The beauty in Xiaoyan's arms involuntarily reached out to hug Xiaoyan's arms, her nose frantically inhaling the warm aura emitted from Xiaoyan's body. If an ordinary person were to see this manner, they would definitely be unable to restrain a smile and be unable to control their own emotions. Even the current Xiaoyan could not help but feel an intense surge in his heart. Fortunately, however, it was ultimately forcefully suppressed by him. However, at this moment, Leng Bingshuang, who was in Xiaoyan's arms, clearly sensed that something was wrong with Xiaoyan's body. She instantly sobered up, and her pale face immediately flushed red. As if she had suddenly regained her strength, she hurriedly struggled out of Xiaoyan's arms. Her smooth feet retreated 2 steps on the icy ground, and she was even more shocked to find that she was completely exposed to the man's gaze. Cough cough. Xiaoyan hurriedly withdrew his gaze. At the same time, he waved his large hand and hurriedly took out a black robe of his from his storage ring. He carelessly handed it to Leng Bingshuang in front of him. The latter hurriedly received the black robe. Only after wearing the black robe did she raise her eyes to look at Xiaoyan with a flushed face. Cough cough, that. I didn't do it on purpose. What I did just now was only to save you. Otherwise, you would have been swallowed by the energy gushing out from the icy spirit-frozen spring. Xiao Yan's face was also flushed red, and he did not even dare to lift his head to look at Leng Bingshuang. Previously, she was unable to react in time, but now that she had regained her composure, if he dared to casually look at her again, she would definitely kill him after she recovered. After Xiao Yan's words, the expression on Leng Bingshuang's beautiful face became incomparably embarrassed and angry. Although she really wanted to tear Xiao Yan apart, if she thought about it carefully, she really could not blame Xiao Yan for what happened just now. In fact, if it was not for Xiao Yan, she would have really died under the powerful energy of the icy spirit-frozen spring. Once this matter is over, you better forget everything that happened between the two of us. Otherwise, even if you escape to the ends of the earth, this prince will definitely kill you. After being silent for a long while, Leng Bingshuang's beautiful face regained its usual indifference, and her words were even more unusually cold. With regards to her words, Xiao Yan did not doubt her at all. After all, a strong practitioner like Leng Bingshuang usually disdained to lie. After Leng Bingshuang finished speaking, she prepared to move and walk towards the direction of the icy spirit-frozen spring. Now that the icy spirit-frozen spring had already erupted, if it was not stopped, then the situation would definitely become even more serious. If it was allowed to continue, the next ones to suffer would not only be the hinterland of Shilin. Ugh, however, after taking 2 steps, Leng Bingshuang's face, which had just recovered, instantly turned deathly pale once again. Her delicate body went limp and directly sat down on the ground. Upon seeing this, Xiao Yan's heart could not help but tighten a little. He wanted to step forward and support her, but the latter waved her large sleeves and stopped Xiao Yan with a cold gaze. This prince does not need you to interfere in my matters. This prince will naturally give you the icy spirit-frozen liquid after this matter is over, but now, please leave the hinterland of Shilin. Otherwise, this prince will kill you right now. Even though her body was already so weak that it was difficult for her to move, Leng Bingshuang was still unwilling to give in. In her heart, she was still the majestic and domineering king of the Shilin mountain range. Any difficulty in front of him was incomparably weak. In order to protect the Shilin mountain range, she definitely could not fall, and even more so, could not reveal any weakness, because that would be a flaw. As a king, she definitely could not allow herself to have any flaws. If you want to kill me, then wait until this matter is over. But now, it is best for you to obediently stay here. As for the icy spirit-frozen liquid, as I said, just leave it to me. Upon hearing Leng Bingshuang's words, not only did Xiao Yan have no intention of backing down, his tone was even more resolute as he directly agreed. With a flip of his palm, 2 jade bottles filled with elixirs appeared in Xiao Yan's palm. After delivering them to Leng Bingshuang, only then did Xiao Yan move his feet. Ignoring Leng Bingshuang's complicated gaze, in the blink of an eye, his figure transformed into a cool breeze and disappeared from this ice room. After Xiao Yan left, Leng Bingshuang's originally upright and delicate body suddenly softened. On the other side of a woman's strength, was an even more fragile and delicate side. With a complicated expression in her eyes, Leng Bingshuang's heart was filled with hesitation as she stared at the 2 jade bottles filled with elixirs in front of her. After a long while, she finally clenched her silver teeth and grabbed one of the jade bottles. Without any hesitation, she poured out the elixirs within it and swiftly consumed them. Then, she coiled up her body and began to slowly refine them. On the other side, relying on the speed of the sky extinction steps, Xiao Yan had once again arrived in front of the cold pool in a short period of time. As he gazed at the cold pool in front of him, the corners of Xiao Yan's mouth gradually curled into a smile. "Old Gu, it's all up to you now." "Heh heh, stinking brat, don't worry. With this old man here, nothing will go wrong. However, you really have some tricks up your sleeve. You actually thought of using such a method to swindle a girl into having a good impression of you. I'm afraid that you have swindled quite a few girls back then. Ha ha ha. Cough cough, you really don't know how to act as an old man. Hurry up and get to work. Right now, the most important thing is to settle this problem first. Xiao Yan's face was red as he softly reprimanded. He could not help but use his hand to rub his nose. After which, he moved his feet and arrived at the edge of the cold pool. Chapter 776. In the hinterland of Shilin, beside the cold pool in the underground ice palace, a black-robed figure stood in this place. His handsome face appeared incomparably white under the reflection of the cold light. From the looks of it, who else could it be other than Xiao Yan? At this moment, Xiao Yan was staring at the cold pool in front of him. He frowned slightly and could not help but feel slightly nervous. The current cold pool was very different from when Leng Bingshuang was here. The surface of the water, which was originally as smooth as a mirror, was now deeply sunken, forming a bottomless whirlpool. In particular, the center of the whirlpool was a pitch-black hole. One could not see the bottom at a glance. The water was spinning rapidly in the whirlpool. Waves of cold air were sucked in from the huge hole above and poured into the depths of the whirlpool. "Old Gu, do you think we can really go down?" Xiao Yan could not help but ask embarrassedly. Even with Xiao Yan's temperament, he could not help but feel nervous when he saw the bottomless whirlpool in front of him. "Hee, why are you scared? Are you afraid? Since you are scared, don't go down. In any case, the eruption of the icy spirit cold spring this time is not complete. There will be plenty of opportunities in the future. You don't lack this time, right? I just don't know how many times the girl outside can withstand such an eruption." Guyu chuckled when he heard Xiao Yan's doubtful words and deliberately teased him. Xiao Yan was speechless when he heard Guyu's words. He pursed his lips and smiled helplessly. "All right, tell me. How can I go down? I will listen to your arrangements." Isn't it easy to go down? You don't have to listen to my arrangements. Just jump down from here." Guyu spoke in a seemingly careless manner. However, these words caused Xiao Yan to be stunned when he heard them. The muscles at the corner of Xiao Yan's mouth twitched uncontrollably. He cursed the old man in his heart. The terror of this icy spirit cold fountain was something that he had personally experienced. Faced with the strength from earlier, Xiao Yan did not think that he had the ability to contend with it. Now, he was actually asked to jump down. Was that not no different from seeking death? It should be known that the reason he dared to come here alone was because he had Guyu behind him. Otherwise, he would not have dared to come here and throw away his life. Little fellow, don't worry. With me around, I guarantee that you will be safe." Guyu could not help but laugh in his heart when he saw Xiao Yan's hesitation. He immediately withdrew his joking tone and solemnly spoke. Hearing this, Xiao Yan finally became certain in his heart. It seemed that this old man was indeed not lying to him. However, it was likely that no one would be able to make him jump down without any preparation. Xiao Yan carefully extended his head to look at the enormous whirlpool in front of him. He felt a little afraid in his heart. However, at this moment, an invisible foot heavily kicked his buttocks from behind. Xiao Yan's heart was greatly startled as his body fell uncontrollably into the whirlpool. What a dilly-dallying! Guyu's somewhat illusory body finally revealed itself beside the cold pool. He helplessly shook his head and shrugged his shoulders. After which, he suddenly disappeared with a bang. In the next moment, a fierce dense white heavenly flame rose from the surface of Xiao Yan's body the moment his body fell into the whirlpool. It protected Xiao Yan's body while its frighteningly high temperature isolated the spring water. In front of Guyu, this icy spirit cold spring was indeed nothing. Even though it had existed for 5,000 years, this so-called advantage was nothing in the face of absolute strength. The entire pool flowed downwards in a straight line. With the isolation of the bone-chilling flame, Xiao Yan was not eroded by the extremely cold spring water. This caused him to rejoice in his heart as he quickly moved and dived deeper into the pool. Without the pressure created by the spring water, Xiao Yan's speed was not hindered by the slightest. Within a short moment, he had already descended a couple of thousand feet. However, it appeared that he was far from reaching the end of the pool. The depths of his sight were still pitch black. No life could be seen in this deep pool. This place appeared deathly silent. The deeper he dived, the larger the space became. The surrounding world was filled with icy blue spring water. There was only pitch-black darkness at the end of his sight. No light could be seen. At a certain moment, Xiao Yan even lost his sense of direction. If it were not for Gu Yu's guidance, it was likely that he would have been lost in this deep pool. Time gradually passed as Xiao Yan dived deeper. This long dive took Xiao Yan an hour. However, the surrounding world was still pitch black in the end. At this moment, even with the isolation of the bone-chilling flame, Xiao Yan could still sense the iciness of the surrounding spring water. Of course, he did not know that this was done on purpose by Gu Yu. Gu Yu's objective was naturally to use the extremely cold spring water to keep Xiao Yan in an extremely clear-headed state. This would prevent the emotions at the bottom of his heart from destroying his original objective of coming here. In this endless dive, Xiao Yan gradually lost track of how long he had dived and how deep he had gone. He could only guarantee that his direction was not wrong as well as his initial goal in the bottom of his heart. The surrounding world became increasingly pitch black. Xiao Yan seemed to have lost his sense of this space. He was like a helpless bird in the night sky. He could neither go nor retreat. Time was like flowing water around him as it rapidly passed by Xiao Yan. An icy temperature enveloped Xiao Yan's entire body. The bone-chilling flame seemed to be unable to hold on any longer. Xiao Yan had reached the end of his journey. Even though he had not seen any valuable results, he could no longer continue diving. Xiao Yan's body stopped in the water. He could clearly feel the temperature of the spring water through the thick white flame. Without the protection of the heavenly flame, he might have frozen to death in an instant. Even if such an outcome would not occur for the time being, if Xiao Yan were to continue diving, such an outcome would be possible. Should he continue diving or choose to give up? Between perseverance and his life, Xiao Yan had to make a choice. In the end, Xiao Yan mobilized all the dou qi in his body. With a thought, a brilliant heavenly flame rose from the surface of his body. It was like a blooming flower in this dark and cold world, releasing brilliant colors. Furthermore, it was the only blazing flower in this pitch-black and cold world. Xiao Yan moved once again and continued heading deeper into the spring water. Gu Yu revealed a satisfied smile in Xiao Yan's heart. The coldness around Xiao Yan's body also swiftly faded. It was as if all the coldness had been diluted by this brilliant flower. Little did he know that he wasn't as strong as he had imagined. It was just that there was someone who had silently shouldered all of this for him. Time flew by quickly. Even though Xiao Yan's movements were not slow, it was impossible to distinguish them in this pitch-black world. Finally, at a certain moment, a starlight suddenly flashed at the edge of Xiao Yan's sight as he continued diving. Even though it disappeared in a flash, it was like a beautiful sunset in Xiao Yan's eyes. It lingered in his mind for a long time. Chapter 777. At the bottom of the cold pool within the ice palace. At this moment, Xiao Yan was standing in the extremely cold spring water. Fortunately, with the isolation of the heavenly flame, Xiao Yan was not eroded by the spring water. A shocked glint was revealed in Xiao Yan's dark black eyes. He was staring at the enormous ice block in front of him, which was the size of a small mountain. His mouth was wide open and he appeared to be stunned. There was no need to describe the shock in his heart. At this moment, the thing that was suspended in front of Xiao Yan was an incomparably large piece of cold ice. Looking from a distance, this piece of cold ice was like a stalagmite. Its sharp end was pointed upward. The lower one was, the larger its size. From Xiao Yan's current position, he was unable to see the roots of this ice mountain at a glance. One could imagine just how large the size of this piece of cold ice was. The cold spring water swiftly withdrew beside Xiao Yan. Light flowed and finally turned into Gu Yu's figure. "Old Gu, what is this?" Xiao Yan opened his mouth slightly. His voice was somewhat astringent as he asked. "Unexpectedly, I really did not expect that there would really be an extreme cold ice soul here. Moreover, it is 5,000 years old. TSK, this is a peerless treasure." Gu Yu, who had appeared, also looked at the boundless enormous ice mountain in front of him with shock in his old eyes. The words from his mouth had already revealed the shock in his heart. "Extreme cold ice soul, old Gu, what is this?" Xiao Yan frowned. His eyes involuntarily swept over the enormous ice block in front of him. Gu Yu by the side nodded gently. He immediately explained to Xiao Yan, "Extreme cold ice soul. This is something that has a certain chance of appearing only in the core area of the icy spirit cold spring. Moreover, it can only appear under certain special environmental conditions. This ice soul is agglomerated from the purest energy of the icy spirit cold spring. Its ability is many times stronger than the spring water. Even if this thing is thrown into a heavenly flame, it will not be an easy task to refine it. With it, your chances of swallowing a heavenly flame in the future will greatly increase. This thing will be of great help in raising your strength." The expression in Xiao Yan's eyes hardened when he heard this. He had heard from Gu Yu that the icy spirit cold liquid had a great suppressive effect on all flames in the world. However, he did not expect that the effect of this extreme cold ice soul would be several times that of the icy spirit cold liquid. If Xiao Yan could obtain it and use it to refine a heavenly flame, would it not be an easy task? "Little brat, don't think too much. Do you really think that you have all the good things in the world? How powerful is a heavenly flame? It is the most overbearing energy in the world. How can it be easily suppressed by this ice soul? Even if it can be suppressed, it will only be possible if the entire ice soul is used. Otherwise, do you really think that the reputation of a heavenly flame is just a bluff?" "Ugh." Xiao Yan was startled. He immediately smiled embarrassedly. That's right. Ever since he had swallowed a heavenly flame, anyone who saw the flame in his hand would reveal a shocked expression. The strength of a heavenly flame was renowned throughout the continent. Since ancient times, a heavenly flame had been a symbol of strength. Even a small flame would cause countless people to fight over it. From this point alone, one could tell that the strength of a heavenly flame was not undeserved. Although this ice soul was extraordinary, the strength of a heavenly flame was much greater than that of a natural object. Even if one wanted to suppress it, it was likely impossible unless one had an advantage in numbers. However, Xiao Yan lifted his head and looked at the enormous ice soul in front of him. He recalled what Gu Yu had said a moment ago. If one wished to suppress a heavenly flame, one would have to use the entire ice soul. Not to mention using it to suppress the heavenly flame, even trying to move it away was an impossible task. Cough cough, old Gu, what should we do now? We can't just sit here and watch. I don't think that I have the ability to move it away. Xiao Yan curled his lips and helplessly shrugged his shoulders as he looked at the enormous ice soul in front of him. Stinking brat, you are dreaming. You want to move it away? Forget about you, even this old man does not have the ability to do so. Gu Yu involuntarily cursed at Xiao Yan, not knowing whether to laugh or cry after hearing his words. Soon after, Gu Yu continued without waiting for Xiao Yan to speak. Brat, have you forgotten why we have entered this place? Xiao Yan was startled. His expression immediately brightened as he hurriedly replied. It is to quell the energy riot within the icy spirit cold fountain. That's right, but do you know how to quell it? Ugh, will old Gu please explain? Xiao Yan immediately displayed a respectful appearance after returning to the main topic. He cupped his hands together respectfully to Gu Yu and spoke with a serious expression. Heh, stinking brat, why do you immediately become normal when this matter concerns that girl? Xiao Yan's face turned red after teasing Guyu. Guyu shook his head and said, "My original plan was to use the icy spirit cold fountain. My original plan was to use the bone-chilling flame to consume a portion of the energy in the core of the icy pool. This way, the energy within the icy spirit cold spring would be in a state of lack. Naturally, there would be no reason for the icy pool to riot. However, from the looks of it now, there is no need for us to do so." A smile appeared on Guyu's old face when he spoke. He lifted his eyes and swept them over the enormous ice soul in front of him. A glint flickered deep within his old eyes. Xiao Yan by the side involuntarily frowned when he saw this scene. He swiftly thought about it in his heart, and the muscles on the corner of his eyes involuntarily twitched. In his heart, he wondered if this old man in front of him was really thinking about this extreme cold ice soul. I have indeed taken a fancy to this ice soul. After all, this thing is the energy crystal of the icy spirit cold fountain. Its value is much higher than this spring water. Guyu turned his head and spoke to Xiao Yan with a smile. He seemed to have seen through Xiao Yan's thoughts. Even if this is the case, we have no way of moving it away, right? Who asked you to move it away? It is the same idea as I had earlier. We will reduce a portion of the energy on this ice soul. At that time, the energy of the icy spirit cold fountain will naturally gather here and do its best to repair the energy that the ice soul has lost. This way, the icy spirit cold fountain will remain in a stable state and the riot will be resolved. As for the method, all we need to do is to remove a piece of this ice soul." Guyu smiled. His somewhat illusory body leisurely arrived in front of the enormous ice soul. He extended his hand and slowly placed it on the surface of the ice soul while being wrapped by the bone-chilling flame. Xiao Yan also understood Guyu's intention from behind. It seemed that Guyu had already planned to start with this ice soul the moment they arrived. This would eliminate the hidden danger of the energy riot of the icy spirit cold fountain and help Xiao Yan obtain a piece of ice soul. It could be said to be the best of both worlds. Xiao Yan looked at Guyu's back as he thought of this. His heart involuntarily felt a little touched. Guyu had done too much for him along the way. Although the two of them had not really interacted much, the relationship between the two of them had already reached an extremely close stage. Perhaps, from a certain point of view, the current Guyu was just like Yao Lao back then. Xiao Yan's throat rolled as he stared at Guyu's back. It was a long while later before he quietly said in his heart, "Old Gu, thank you for this journey." Chapter 778. Oh, take it. Be careful. Although this thing does not appear big, it is agglomerated with the extremely cold energy of the entire icy spirit cold spring. Once this thing touches you, even you might not be able to deal with it. Guyu randomly threw a football-sized ice soul to Xiao Yan from the deepest part of the cold pool. Xiao Yan, who had originally intended to use his hand to catch it, hurriedly withdrew his hand when he heard Guyu's words. He swiftly took out a jade box of similar size from his storage ring. Only then did he manage to catch it and swiftly closed the jade box. Although Xiao Yan's actions were quick, a thin layer of ice swiftly spread over the jade box the moment the jade box was closed. At the same time, an extremely cold feeling swiftly surged out from within the jade box. Damn it, it is indeed worthy of being an ice soul. This temperature is really frighteningly low. Xiao Yan hurriedly used his heavenly flame to wrap the entire jade box. A layer of fire barrier formed on the surface of the jade box. Only then did he manage to isolate the frightening cold aura. Even though this was the case, Xiao Yan was still able to sense waves of cold aura being emitted from within. Xiao Yan carefully put it away. After which, he finally sighed in relief in his heart. He lifted his eyes and looked at the ice soul in front of him. He could see that an eye-catching pit had appeared on it. At this moment, waves of cold energy from the surrounding spring water seemed to have been attracted by something as they swiftly gathered toward the pit. This activity swiftly spread to the other parts of the pool. Finally, the entire pool seemed to have gathered at this moment. Waves of enormous energy continued to surge out from the spring water and swiftly poured into the pit. Within the ice palace in the outside world. At this moment, Leng Bingshuang had used the medicinal pill that Xiao Yan had left behind to recover a portion of her strength. Coincidentally, Leng Bingshuang had arrived at the cold pool. However, the scene that appeared in front of her caused her pretty face to be filled with surprise. At this moment, the surface of the cold pool in front of Leng Bingshuang, which was originally rapidly rotating in a whirlpool shape, had suddenly become quiet. Even the extremely cold water pillars that occasionally shot out from within swiftly disappeared the moment they rose. Soon, the entire cold pool regained its initial calmness. It was as though nothing had happened here. However, under this calmness, Leng Bingshuang clearly discovered that a storm was brewing deep within the cold pool. The pool, which appeared to have calmed down, was definitely not as it appeared on the surface. What is happening below? Leng Bingshuang clearly sensed that in the depths of the cold pool, the terrifying energy contained within the spring water was gathering at a speed visible to the naked eye. This was the first time that she had seen such a commotion after guarding the icy spirit cold spring for so many years. The appearance of this scene caused Leng Bingshuang to rejoice in her heart. At the same time, she did not dare to let down her guard for even a moment. After all, without knowing exactly what was happening, no one could guarantee that the icy spirit cold spring would not suddenly erupt again. If Leng Bingshuang were to let down her guard and get injured, it would be too late for regrets. Leng Bingshuang's delicate figure stood upright. With a twist of her jade-like hand, the icy blue longsword landed in her palm. A pair of long beautiful eyes stared intently at the seemingly calm water surface, patiently waiting. Time passed by minute, and the energy under the water was still gathering towards the depths. It seemed that there was no end to it at all. On the other hand, the expression on Leng Bingshuang's pretty face did not recover at all. Instead, it seemed to have become more dignified. No one knew exactly what was happening below the cold pool. Even with Leng Bingshuang's strength, she did not have any confidence in such a situation. In the blink of an eye, 2 hours had already passed. At a certain moment, the expression on Leng Bingshuang's face suddenly changed. The hand holding the longsword tightened slightly as the Genesis Qi in the Qi vortex in her body stealthily began to circulate. It's coming. Undercurrents surged beneath the surface of the water, causing the calm water surface to violently churn at this moment, as if something was about to rush out from the depths. Leng Bingshuang's pretty face was filled with nervousness, ready to deal with whatever was about to happen. A few minutes later, a black figure suddenly charged out from the bottom of the cold pool, causing a large splash that splashed onto the icy ground around the cold pool. Icicles rapidly grew one after another, blooming like beautiful flowers. However, the piercingly cold light made it so that no one dared to carelessly touch them. Leng Bingshuang's soft body trembled slightly as the Genesis Qi in her body poured out, completely blocking the splashing water. Next, the long sword in her hand was fiercely swung as a ferocious sword Qi swiftly shot towards the black figure. Bang! At this crucial moment, Xiao Yan, who had rushed out of the water, hurriedly retrieved the heavy Xian ruler. The giant ruler flipped in the air, beautiful flames drawing a beautiful arc in the air as it heavily collided with the sword Qi. Following an intense bang sound, the huge heavy Xian ruler uncontrollably escaped from Xiao Yan's hand and flew to the icy ground beside the cold pool. The heavy, huge ruler was forcefully inserted into the ground. Xiao Yan's body also involuntarily flew backwards. Finally, he heavily smashed into the ground on the other side of the cold pool. A muffled groan was emitted from his throat and the blood in his body churned. If it were not for the fact that Leng Bingshuang had yet to recover her strength, it was likely that the attack earlier would have been sufficient to take Xiao Yan's life. When she saw that the black figure that had rushed out of the water was actually Xiao Yan, a look of surprise involuntarily appeared on Leng Bingshuang's pretty face. Even she did not dare to enter the cold pool. Who would have thought that Xiao Yan would actually come out from below? This was just too unbelievable. Cough, 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 cough. I say, woman, I spent a lot of effort to help you quell the riot in this cold lake. Not only did you not thank me, you actually tried to kill me as soon as you came up. If it wasn't for my good luck today, if it was someone else, I'm afraid they would have already died under your sword. Xiao Yan also did not expect Leng Bingshuang to suddenly do something like this. While he felt some lingering fear in his heart, anger also swiftly rose from the bottom of his heart. Immediately, he could not be bothered to care about the other party's identity and could not help but reprimand her. Hearing Xiao Yan's words, the expression on Leng Bingshuang's pretty face became embarrassed and angry. As an origin transformation expert, when had she ever been reprimanded like this? What's more, it was by a mere 6-star half-martial emperor brat. If it was any other time, Leng Bingshuang would definitely have retorted. If she was a little more vicious, she would have already threatened him with his life. However, this time, she did not know why. Although she clearly had such thoughts in her heart, her body remained frozen on the spot for a long time. In the end, she did not do anything. She just listened to Xiao Yan's reprimand with a red face. Only after a long while did Leng Bingshuang violently shake her head. She raised her long and narrow eyes and coldly glanced at Xiao Yan. The latter was immediately stunned. Only then did he remember how terrifying this woman was. Just as he was at a loss for words, Leng Bingshuang let out a soft snort. With a twist of her body, she left the place in a flash. On the spot, Xiao Yan's expression could not help but be slightly stunned. He wondered when this woman had stopped holding grudges. Soon after, he helplessly shrugged his shoulders. With a move of his body, he quickly left the place. Chapter 779. Within the ice palace, Leng Bingshuang was slowly walking into a large hall that was completely made of ice. Xiao Yan followed closely behind her. Humph, do you really think that I won't kill you? Seeing that Xiao Yan had actually followed her, the expression on Leng Bingshuang's pretty face immediately turned cold. She turned her head and coldly reprimanded Xiao Yan. At the same time, an incomparably powerful aura was emitted from her body and ruthlessly pressed down on Xiao Yan. Seeing this scene, Xiao Yan's footsteps, which were continuing to walk forward, also paused slightly. With a thought, a large amount of spiritual strength immediately surged out from between his brows and blocked Leng Bingshuang's aura. Of course, even though Xiao Yan had forcefully blocked the latter's aura, the expression on his face could not help but become slightly distorted. His complexion also became pale. You overestimate yourself. Leng Bingshuang let out a cold snort. She immediately withdrew the aura and pressure that she had spread out. Xiao Yan's body also suddenly felt relaxed. His stiff body suddenly straightened as his mouth panted for coarse air. After all, Leng Bingshuang was an origin transformation expert. Her aura was something that even a Dou Di would not be able to endure. How could he possibly endure it with just his strength? From the looks of it, it was likely that Leng Bingshuang had intentionally held back. Otherwise, with Xiao Yan's strength as a 6-star half-emperor, even if the current Leng Bingshuang was not at her peak, it was still impossible for him to fight against her. Why exactly did the icy spirit cold spring stop moving? Ignoring Xiao Yan, Leng Bingshuang minded her own business and walked towards the depths of the large hall. At the same time, she also asked the question that had been in her heart along the way. Hearing this, a glint quickly flashed across Xiao Yan's eyes. He had already expected that the woman in front of him would definitely ask such a question. I don't really understand either. After the icy spirit frozen spring met my heavenly flame, it disintegrated very easily. I stayed in the icy spirit frozen spring for 4 hours and used up a lot of the icy spirit frozen spring's energy. Perhaps because of this, the icy spirit frozen spring stopped rioting. Xiao Yan shrugged his shoulders and displayed an innocent expression, as if this was the true reason for this matter. Oh. Leng Bingshuang's footsteps paused. The corner of her eyes glanced at Xiao Yan behind her. Her sharp eyes contained a hint of suspicion. Xiao Yan's expression did not change. In the face of Leng Bingshuang's doubt, he had already repeatedly considered it in his heart many times. He had even imagined what the latter's expression would be like. Compared to what he had imagined, the current Leng Bingshuang's expression was much gentler. This also caused Xiao Yan's heart to be slightly different. "Humph, I'll believe you for now. You followed me for the icy spirit frost liquid, right?" Leng Bingshuang changed the topic and said again. Ever since they left the icy spirit cold spring, Xiao Yan had been following her. Other than the icy spirit cold spring, there could not be any other reason. "You should have already taken the Bodhi returning pill. Now that I have helped you stop the icy spirit cold spring's movement, the icy spirit cold spring, shut up." Xiao Yan's heart was slightly shocked. He thought to himself, how can this woman turn hostile so quickly? "You still have the face to mention the Bodhi returning pill. I have yet to settle that matter with you." Leng Bingshuang suddenly turned around. Her graceful figure was perfectly displayed as she turned around. A pair of long and beautiful eyes stared fixedly at Xiao Yan. A cold light flickered in the depths of her beautiful eyes. Leng Bingshuang was naturally referring to the matter of Xiao Yan touching her body. Hearing this, Xiao Yan was slightly stunned. Immediately, his expression became awkward. He could not help but feel a little helpless. Being stared at by such a dangerous woman, how could he dare to act rashly? "Humph, I am warning you one last time. You better forget about that matter. Otherwise, no one can save you." With a cold snort, Leng Bingshuang turned around again. At the same time, a ray of light flew towards Xiao Yan at the instant she turned around. Xiao Yan carefully received the flowing light. He focused his eyes and took a look. The thing that appeared in the air above his palm was surprisingly a jade bottle that was filled with icy spirit cold liquid. Xiao Yan smiled slightly and randomly kept it. At the same time, he quietly thought in his heart, "Woman, you clearly exposed yourself in front of me. How can it be so easy for me to forget?" Putting away the thoughts in his heart, Xiao Yan smiled embarrassedly and was about to raise his feet to follow. "Get lost. You have already obtained what you want. Now, get out of the hinterland of Shilin. Otherwise, don't blame me for personally taking action." Leng Bingshuang coldly reprimanded in a low voice. At the same time, a powerful aura rapidly swept out from her body. Like an invisible giant bird, it pounced towards Xiao Yan. Seeing this, Xiao Yan's expression suddenly changed. He knew that this woman was not joking around this time. Helplessly, he could only quickly retreat. It was not until he left the hall that Leng Bingshuang's aura stopped. Xiao Yan helplessly shrugged his shoulders. Since Leng Bingshuang intended to chase him away, he could only do as he was told. After all, the latter's strength was clearly displayed here. If this woman really got angry, Xiao Yan did not think that he had the ability to resolve it. Anyway, now that he had obtained the icy spirit cold spring, there was not much difference whether he stayed or not. He might as well leave this place and prepare for the next step of refining medicine. "Icy spirit pill, I have waited for so many years for you. Now, you have finally arrived." Sighing softly in his heart, Xiao Yan's figure moved. He did not delay any longer and followed the route in his memory. In a moment, Xiao Yan had already left the ice palace and once again appeared in the snowy hinterland of Shilin. Lifting his head to identify the direction, Xiao Yan's figure moved and swiftly flew towards the east. This time, Xiao Yan did not plan to return to Tianning and the rest. Instead, he chose a more suitable mountain peak among the snowy peaks. Under the protection of the heavenly flame, Xiao Yan quickly opened up a cave halfway up the snowy peak. After entering, he immediately took out the medicinal cauldron. Clang! A loud sound was heard. The enormous Luo Tian cauldron immediately smashed heavily in front of Xiao Yan. Its frightening weight caused the entire snowy peak to tremble slightly at this moment. The pure white snow that had accumulated over the years also suddenly collapsed, causing the nearby mountain forest to shake. After taking out the Luo Tian cauldron, Xiao Yan was not in a hurry to begin refining the medicinal pill. Instead, he sat down and closed his eyes. He began to calm his heart and recover the dou qi that he had exhausted in the ice palace. After refining the returning bodhisattva pill the last time, Xiao Yan had already realized just how much energy a rank 3 alchemist needed to refine a medicinal pill was. Hence, before he confirmed that he had completely recovered to his peak, Xiao Yan did not dare to rashly start refining a medicinal pill. Compared to refining a medicinal pill for someone else, Xiao Yan did not dare to be the slightest bit careless when doing things for himself. He wanted to ensure that this icy spirit pill was refined to an absolutely perfect state. Chapter 780. While Xiao Yan entered the cultivation state, Leng Bingshuang also began to cultivate, not daring to be careless. She was naturally doing this to refine the Bodhi return pill. Due to the unforeseen event in the cold pool, the Genesis Qi in Leng Bingshuang's body had been cleanly washed away by the eruption of the cold pool before she could recover her strength to its peak. Hence, for safety's sake, Leng Bingshuang had no choice but to restore her strength to its peak. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, a week had passed. In the cave, Xiao Yan's eyelids trembled slightly as he sat cross-legged like a statue. His tightly shut eyes slowly opened as his lips parted slightly. The turbid air that had been suppressed in his chest was also slowly exhaled at this moment. With a slight twist of his body, Xiao Yan exerted force in his legs as he rose from his seated position. At the same time, the cracking sound of bones colliding rang out from all over Xiao Yan's body. A numb feeling spread from all over his body, causing Xiao Yan to involuntarily let out a long and comfortable sigh. He casually moved his body a few times, feeling the dou qi in his body return to its peak. A smile slowly emerged from the corners of Xiao Yan's mouth. Every time the dou qi in his body was overly exhausted and recovered, Xiao Yan's strength would once again solidify by a little. Although this process was slow and long, the path of cultivation was about gradual progress. Even the slightest growth that was akin to a drop of water was enough for Xiao Yan to treat it with all his strength. Xiao Yan withdrew his gaze and looked towards the green-gold medicinal cauldron in front of him. The special metallic luster made the cauldron appear even heavier than it looked. Xiao Yan's legs were crossed as he once again sat in front of the cauldron. With a thought, an enormous amount of spirit force immediately poured out from between his brows and poured into the enormous cauldron in front of him. At the same time, Xiao Yan's vigorous dou qi was also poured in. Pop! All of a sudden, a magnificent flame suddenly rose up in the medicinal cauldron. The light of the flame passed through the cauldron's fire vent and shone on Xiao Yan's face. A pair of dark eyes that were as calm as an ancient well were reflecting the changes in the medicinal cauldron in front of him. Xiao Yan's expression was calm as he patiently waited for the temperature within the medicinal cauldron to gradually rise. When the temperature within the medicinal cauldron reached the level that Xiao Yan had expected, Xiao Yan suddenly waved his sleeve. Astral winds howled as streaks of flowing light shot out from Xiao Yan's palm like flying arrows and quickly entered the medicinal cauldron that had already opened its lid. The raging, heavenly flame charged up without any hesitation. Under the continuous consumption of the dou qi in Xiao Yan's body, it wildly refined the medicinal ingredients that had already been thrown into the medicinal cauldron. With the experience of refining the bodhisattva pill, Xiao Yan also had some confidence in refining a Tier 3 medicinal pill. This was undoubtedly a good thing. After all, confidence was the beginning of success. Of course, excessive confidence would naturally lead to a tragic outcome. Fortunately, Xiao Yan's confidence was based on the premise that he had to be cautious. Only by being prepared and confident could he reduce the chances of failure to the lowest level. This was because he could already imagine the appearance of failure. Naturally, he would be more careful to avoid such a situation from happening. At this moment, Xiao Yan was like a mold. He already had an answer to the exact appearance of the ice spirit pill in his heart. What he needed to do now was to pour the ingredients into the mold. Once time passed, the medicinal pill would naturally be completed. Time flew by. Unknowingly, 1 month had already passed. The medicinal ingredients within Xiao Yan's medicinal cauldron had already been completely transformed into various kinds of extremely pure medicinal liquids. Under Xiao Yan's great control, he prepared to enter the next pill melting process. On the other side, Leng Bingshuang finally withdrew from her training state after a long recovery of over a month's time. After resting for a moment, she quickly swallowed the Bodhisattva pill and once again entered her training state. She began to concentrate on refining the Bodhisattva pill within her body. In the outside world, at the bottom of the volcano deep within the Shilin mountain range, the 3 Sky Eagle brothers, along with Bao, were also present. In front of the 4 of them was an enormous stone platform. Some kind of complicated symbols were carved on it, causing it to be difficult to understand. At the middle of the stone platform, there was a scarlet monster core that appeared like a crystal ball. This monster core was that 5-star Do D-class monster core. At this moment, the 4 of them had their eyes tightly shut. Following the rhythm of their breathing from their noses, waves of powerful energy that was filled with a wild and violent feeling gradually surged out from within the monster core. It was like scarlet fresh blood that climbed onto the bodies of the 4 of them. As they breathed, it poured into the bodies of the 4 of them. Originally, Xiao Yan did not plan to allow Bao to refine the energy within this monster core. After all, the time that they had known each other was really too short. Splitting such a powerful energy into 3 portions had already greatly reduced the utilization rate of this monster core. According to Xiao Yan's original estimation, if the energy within this monster core was completely swallowed by the 3 Sky Eagle brothers, the strength of the 3 of them should be able to reach the 2-star Do D class. However, if there was one more person, it would be difficult to say. The action of allowing Bao to join them was also suggested by Sky Eagle. He knew that Xiao Yan had the intention of keeping Bao in the Shilin mountain range from the very beginning. His invitation to Bao this time around would undoubtedly be able to help Xiao Yan while also allowing Bao to feel gratitude towards Xiao Yan and the rest of them. Even though Bao would lose a portion of the energy within this monster core because of this, it could also be considered several times more beneficial. Regardless of how one looked at it, they would not lose out in this transaction. In the blink of an eye, half a year had already passed. During this half a year, Xiao Yan had completely immersed himself in the process of refining medicine. Fortunately, Xiao Yan did not make any mistakes in the refinement of the Ice Spirit pill this time around. It was basically completed in one go from the beginning to the end. At this moment, a round medicinal pill was already rotating and suspended in the medicinal cauldron in front of Xiao Yan. The final step of the pill formation process was also about to come to an end. The smoothness of everything caused Xiao Yan to feel a pleasant surprise in his heart. At the same time, he did not dare to be the slightest bit careless deep within his heart. The more important it was, the more he needed to clench his teeth. Only the moment the medicinal pill was truly completed would Xiao Yan be able to truly relax. Rumble. Suddenly, the sound of thunder was emitted from the rising white fog in the sky. Xiao Yan, who had been sitting cross-legged within the cave for half a year, finally woke up at this moment. An exhausted smile was revealed on his pale face. With a flick of his finger, the Northern King once again appeared by his side. Pill lightning descends, Northern King appears.